the result then.
Good. Okie dokie. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 35th meeting of the Principal Designers Working Group. And hopefully IT is going to be kind to us. Unless people are speaking, or could we stay off camera to try and sort of preserve the broadband? Because at the moment, we all seem to be having some challenges with the upgrade of new teams, which is inevitable with IT. So unless you're talking, maybe you could come off camera. It just preserves a bit of the sort of broadband. Okay. We have a safety moment, do we not, Doug?
Yes, we have a couple actually. Yes.
Very interesting one on hexavalent chromium paint systems removal. We're very good at applying paint systems, rather like the Forth Bridge. Periodically, they have to, or used to be, have to be removed. So that's the first safety moment. We also got a very interesting one from Talent on protection of surface laid cables, which is helping us move forward, and we're learning a lot from it. Okay, so can we have the first safety moment, please, Doug?
Certainly. I've just got a couple of housekeeping things. So the agenda has been updated slightly. We've had a couple of late drop-offs. Apologies from Futron colleagues who were going to present on Zero Harm 2040 and IRAP, but there's a number of sort of contractual things there, so they're going to hopefully present at a future meeting. As Richard has already said, if we could keep cameras off unless we're presenting, we will have a chat room, which I will try to monitor as we go through. We're looking for a break around about 10:40, depending on duration of presentations, and then one at about 11:30, and we are recording the meeting. So the first safety moment is going to be given by Tav. I think I've seen Tav on the call.
Yep.
Okay, I will stop sharing. So if you'd like to share your screen, because I know you said you wanted to present at your end.
Yep, is that okay? Right, can everyone see that?
We can, thank you.
Brilliant. I'll switch to camera for a minute. I just thought I'd say hello first. So morning everyone. So I'm Tav Gohill. I'm a technical director at Arcadis. I'm going to talk to you today about something called hexavalent chromium, which you might be familiar with, and on a project we recently discovered it on. So I'll switch off my camera and get started, if that's okay. Okay, so just to give you a bit of background. So we're currently working with Birmingham City Council on a major structure called Tame Valley Viaduct. You might be familiar with Tame Valley, so it's basically the major route connecting the strategic road network. So for those of you familiar, the Midlands motorway viaducts or Spaghetti Junction to the middle of Birmingham. Quite a big structure. So it's 620 meters long, it's 25 meters wide, it's about 7 lanes, and it's something called tidal flow. So there's a lane in the middle that switches on and off depending on requirements in terms of peak capacity, and it's, as you can imagine, an absolutely vital link into Birmingham. It's had a huge history of kind of assessment issues and capacity issues, and we're finally now on the ground doing some strengthening and refurbishment. And the type of work we're talking around. So just to give you a bit of an idea, so it is a steel box girder, or a few steel box girders, and the repairs kind of consist of welding stiffeners, refurbing elements, replacing small elements, steel elements, working confined space. So it's quite a tricky job, but quite an interesting job as well. So Arcadis is providing NEC support to the client, and then we've got a contractor in Volker Laser Fitzpatrick as well. So during the refurbishment, which started probably a couple of years ago now, they were doing some kind of routine paint testing, and they discovered something called hexavalent chromium. So what is hexavalent chromium? So like I said, you might be familiar with it, or you might have heard the phrase before. So it's basically an industrial applicator. It's used in kind of anti-corrosion type paint systems, but very rarely used in bridge systems, which is why it's such a concern in this situation. It's a carcinogen, and it's been there's been massive documented cases on how dangerous it is as a substance. It can cause, depending on the exposure limit, it can cause minor damage and kind of irritation, all the way through to cancer, quite serious forms of cancer. You might be familiar with, there was a Hollywood movie many years ago now with I think it was Julia Roberts, called Aaron Brockovich, which is based on a true story, and that was around hexavalent chromium, and around it's a slightly different situation, but it's around how hexavalent chromium got into a water system by a water company, and it poisoned a huge mass of people in a community and caused all sorts of issues. So the instances of it are very well documented, and which is why the situation here is particularly of concern. So how was the kind of risk managed? So I think the first thing and the most important thing is through collaboration of all the people involved. So worked with likes of Birmingham City Council, also had the HSE involved just because of the unique nature of the situation. Contractor was obviously key to this. The client was absolutely key. But there's kind of published workplace exposure limits for hexavalent chromium, and some long-term exposure limits, but there is no kind of established standard, akin to a control of working with lead regulations. There is for hexavalent chromium. I suspect there will be at some point, but it's just to make you show you that this is a bit of a unique scenario where we had some information in terms of what needs to be done, but there isn't a prescribed situation for this type of use in this type of situation. So I think key to this was likes of PPE, but enhanced PPE. So it's not just the usual respiratory systems. It's face fit tested, disposable coveralls, coated disposable coveralls on top of standard PPE, and then controlled disposable of that information, enhanced cleaning procedures, provision of kind of contaminated waste disposal processes, and then there's the other side of it. So that just gives you an idea of some of the PPE some people had to wear, and the other side of that is kind of ventilation, looking at air monitoring, dust monitoring, paint monitoring, regular health checks, really controlling what's happening. And this obviously has its own risks, because as you can imagine, if you look at the picture on the left, having to do your work wearing all that PPE, at the moment it's been fairly mild, but as the warm temperature gets up, it's going to be very uncomfortable in there. So there's going to be another risk to manage around how we're going to control that. However, it will just show you the kind of how serious the kind of potential harm it could cause as well. So that's how we kind of manage the risks on site as we're doing it. But then the key really is lessons learned. How do we make sure that this is kind of shared far and wide, which is why I'm here today, and spoke to the likes of Doug and others to see how we can kind of share this across various clients and various industries and practices. So it obviously always starts with the design, and particularly around material assessment and identifying kind of composition of existing paint systems. So this would have been done during the design phase. However, conventional paint system testing probably is not massively reliable between differentiating between chromium, which is okay and it's not as serious, versus hexavalent chromium. So it's about having those conversations with the supply chain, with designers, with specialist testing houses to understand what systems they've got to differentiate between those, and then that would have been a very good way to manage that risk in the first place. Obviously the site controls, which I've talked around, so you've got these additional enhancement and procedures. I suspect once this the job is finished, there'll be another review by HSE, by others, to see what we did, whether that is considered best practice now, what we need to do going forward, and how that influences things going forward. And then almost most importantly, the key is the maintenance going forward, how we maintain these structures, but also how we store the data we're going to use, and kind of keeping up to date with the data. So it's no good having, and we're all familiar with this, a hard file in the back of the office with some, information around, that's got hexavalent chromium or there's some issues. It needs to be accessible data, using GIS systems. We need to just make sure we're a bit cleverer in terms of how we get that data and share it with people. And then the most important thing, as I discussed, is kind of, you know, how we share it amongst ourselves, continuous improvement, and that's why I'm here today, to kind of just highlight the concerns and issues around it. So that's it from me. Thanks for listening. Has anybody got any questions?
I suppose one question, this Richard, one question that immediately strikes me is how many other structures do we have on the SRN with hexavalent paint?
Yes, I think that's the scary question. So I don't think there is an answer, but I think there is a lot of steel structures, box structures like this, which have been painted of similar kind of age. So that'll give you an idea in terms of, you know, where to start. So for instance, I was working on Area 9 a few years ago, and I did a huge program of the longitudinal box girders there, you know, painting some of them, cutting holes into them, looking at doing internal inspections. So there's a starting point, I think, for the SRN in terms of you've got a list of steel structures, major steel structures, you know which ones you're going to be refurbing, and it's just making sure, like I said, we try and get those material assessments a bit more enhanced in the first place, get this word out, you know, to the teams to say, you know, there is additional consideration for designers and for, you know, when you're designing things to refurb these structures.
Because I know, I may be incorrect, but my memory is such that Network Rail had quite a few structures as well with similar coatings.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because the makeup of their structures is very different, and I think it was a bit more traditional and common to use it on kind of rail type structures.
I think
Thank you.
Mark's got his hand up.
Oh yeah, Tom, that was really interesting, and I have to say I know very little about hexavalent chromium. Has it been banned? Is it still used, or?
So it's a bit like kind of a bit like asbestos. So it's still being used in some countries. I think there's a ban in Europe, I believe now, which only came in relatively recently, to be fair. So I think it's one of those. It's going to take a long time for the world to catch up with, you know, what the issues are. But you know, it's a kind of embedded process and systems that's going to take a while until it's fully out of the world. But it's a bit like lead, you know, and a bit like asbestos. There'll be ways to manage it going forward, but we probably won't produce it in new designs, etc.
So it's no longer used in this country?
No.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks very much.
Okay, I think Katie's got a hand up.
Hi. No, that's really interesting. Sorry, I've got a geeky occupational health hygiene background. So it'd be great if we could share that with the Healthier by Design as maybe a case study group, maybe the occupational health group, because I think the occupational health group, they have quite a lot of hygiene specialists in there as well that would be able to communicate that out. I believe the product is still used in manufacturing, though. Might not be used as paid products, but it's still used heavily in manufacturing, especially in the Midlands. So,
I think in industry, you're right, Katie, it's still used, but in terms of civil engineering, I think it's banned.
I think that's correct. But yeah, I think there's similar controls I've experienced in the past with, like I said, lead and coal on structures. So, but it's not until you do those works that you identify it. So yeah, it'd be good to get a mapping of the. So yeah, just reaffirming. Really interesting case study. Thank you.
No, thanks, Katie. I know we've produced a case study, which I think, Doug, you're going to share with the group, or already shared, so that can be the basis of that. Those initial conversations should be good.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. There is the case studies sort of final draft. I think we're just going to pass it to Jim for any final comments. And there's also a safety share that we've developed, which will be going up on the safety hub very shortly as well. So I think.
Did you do any occupational hygiene monitoring at the time, just for exposures, to get an idea if there was any potential exposure? Obviously, you got the PPE was great, and looking at the control measures, but it'd be good to see if there was any actual potential exposure during the works.
Yeah, so I think they were quite fortunate. So they did the testing initially, and then they got the test results back before they did any proper work. So the exposure was very low. I don't know what the numbers were, but I think it was within the kind of published workplace exposure limits. So we should have been okay with that. But I can have a look and come back to you.
Yeah, there's got some really neat passive badges that you can wear that aren't really intrusive. They're quite. I'm sure you've done it, but yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
And can we make sure that case study goes to Mr. Pilkington, because he's heading up the Supply Chain Safety Leadership Group, working group, Healthier and Safer by Design?
Yep, certainly will do. Yep.
Thank you, Doug. Brilliant.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next safety moment is protecting us surface laid cables, as Richard mentioned. Maureen Gargan was going to present, but unfortunately she's unavailable. Apologises. And I think Katie, you were going to stand in for her.
Yes, I was. I've also included it in the hub slides, so we'll have to. I'm doubled up slightly. So yeah, if you've got the slides, do you want to share or do you want me to share them?
Probably better at your end because it'll
That's
throw
fine.
throw
That
my
works
system
out better than
Okay.
because right. That's so here it goes. So yeah, Maureen did a piece of work to update Raising Bar 9. Just talking in the background whilst I'm finding the slides.
Yeah, that's come through.
Brilliant. So she had a few members of the hub to update it, and it was mainly around the update was to do with around, as you said, surface laid cables. Obviously, Telent have a background of obviously installing and having to protect those, and there's a number of issues associated with how we manage those going forward, and design being one of those elements that's perhaps overlooked. I think it's there to some degree, but not enough in others. So that was one of the focus points. So if I tab along. So it wasn't, so the document itself had a full review. It's literally about above ground surface cables, and it added a bit of meat to some of the legacy cables as well. So these were the members that were involved, and it was head up by Maureen. She did the much more of the donkey work than the rest of us. So as I just said, it was about specifically around safety critical cables, and that was also defined as well, which was something that wasn't defined in Raising the Bar. So there's additional work around defining that element of it. And it was looking, there'd been a number of incidents that come out, and quite significant incidents that affected members of the hub that gave cause for this to be reviewed. So the main aim was focused around some of the activities to do with vegetation clearance, because a lot of the disruptions and issues of surface mounted cables are when we are doing our vegetation clearances, because they can't clearly be identified, and that's been a problem in the past because obviously these cables are there for sometimes several years. So that's the biggest problem. And over time, some of the protection and some of the identifiers have degraded over time, so they're not clearly identifiable, and they're not mapped as well. There's obviously an issue with vandalism as well, and RTC has become an issue where cables been attached, you wouldn't believe, but I think you will from members, to the backs of VRS systems, and obviously those are designed to be hit. So when they are hit, obviously if any cables are attached to that, then they become damaged. And rodents is a huge issue, which I didn't realise how big an issue until Maureen sort of educated us within Telent that rodents like to eat the ducting. Supposedly it's quite tasty. So how the cables are protected within the ducting without having breaks within the ducting is really important. So those are some of the factors that are brought in. So on the updates, as I said, it was really designed and focused around design. So those dedicated routes, how the cables are protected, and Maureen and her team have done a huge amount of work on ensuring that they, which I don't think the wider group probably do, but because Telent are more invested perhaps than the rest of us, not saying all of us, they've got better systems to actually ensure that they don't have those breakages, and they bung the ends, more importantly, of the ducting as well, to prevent those rodents getting in. And then it's where they're positioned, which is, it all seems common sense stuff, but it's some of these things that are not really necessarily factored in, is what Maureen found. And then it's engaging with the stakeholders as well. So who are those key responsibilities? Often there's people that are managing those contracts for long periods, but then those get handed over, and the key contacts don't necessarily get handed over to the people that are responsible for maintaining those cables. So it was really looking at how those maintenance plans developed as well, and putting clear guidance in around that. And then there was also a piece of work about identifying those cables as well. So there's some companies that have come out with some really nice, simple ways of clearly identifying ducting, whether that's historical or stuff that's going in, and stuff that's been found. So legacy cables, how then it's flagged up to the wider community until something more permanent's been put in, whether that's the cable then becomes buried or becomes surface-mounted and protected. Then finally, there is now scope within the hub that we are going to do a more wider review of the whole of the Raising the Bar standard. So we're planning anyway, the next meeting of our next face-to-face meeting to have a themed meeting around Raising the Bar 9 and how we're potentially going to, and I've got to go back to the supply chain leadership groups. This isn't stone yet, but potentially to start to develop one of those different risk groups, because there's a scope to develop the above ground and below ground cable group, and we are looking to perhaps pull members from the hub to start formulating that and putting together a bit of a scope. So we obviously welcome members from the design community, and we know we have some of you already on the hub group, which would be wonderful. We need that element. And this is some of the sort of parameters that we'll be looking at. So we'd welcome volunteers. And finally, just to sort of re-emphasise, in the Midlands, Tellent have been doing a huge amount of work to scope the cables, and they've got great design plans, and it's how we can take this piece of work that they've been doing in the Midlands and replicate it across national highways, so that when these cables go in, the wider community know where they are, and then there's a better handover to perhaps the maintenance teams as well, because it is still very much silo working, I think, in all the areas that haven't really got this clear data. So I know Maureen and Neil Tyson have been tasked at reviewing what they're doing in the Midlands and how this can be replicated elsewhere. So it's probably, again, some of the people in the group that are probably involved in these projects. That's it in a nutshell. I'm sure Maureen would have put it far more eloquently. I shall take some questions, but I'll try and answer them.
So Katie, it's Richard. You were pleased to know I was talking to John Dowsett earlier in the week that your topic will be discussed on next Monday's Supply Chain Safety Leadership Group meeting.
Wonderful. I have been trying to get hold of John.
Yeah, he's
a busy bee.
He's busy bee, and he had to cancel meetings today as well. I think when you actually drive up the SRN, you can see where with some of the new works that we're doing, the improvements that are being made. Sometimes National Highways doesn't help itself, because we put in temporary cable runs, maintain them, and then we recognise that some work's going to take place at some stage in the future. So we ask the supplier, the contractor, to leave it. And we all know within National Highways that sometimes our plans drift. And what was going to be done in, say, 3 to 6 months' time may take place in 3 to 4 years' time. And we haven't really got, or haven't had in the past, good records of where those cables are. And then, ops go in there to cut the grass and vegetation, and then it's a vicious circle. So any work we can do to improve is fantastic. But also it's the specification of the temporary cables as well, and the sheathing for it is very, very important, because the longer you leave it, the more it deteriorates. Any other questions, or does somebody have their hand up?
Any hands?
No, I can't see any hands. But,
got away with that one.
You did lightly.
Yeah, quite.
Okay, thank you, Katie, and thank you, Richard, and Tal previously. Yeah, some really interesting stuff going on there, and yeah, quite concerning. So, and I know this has got a number of messages to Tal to speak to various people. So certainly, Robert. So hopefully we'll set that up, and we'll share the safety share and case studies very shortly with the group and wider. Okay, so just picking up from matters arising from our last meeting. And when they had a discussion around CDM documentation, Mark Lamport was to speak to Nina Warminger.
I've tried to, but haven't managed to. I think one of the actions was that she was going to speak to Katie Harmon, who obviously is no longer with National Highways. So yeah, I need to catch up with Nina to see if there's been any actions since we last communicated, which was back in November last year. I thought she might have been on this call, but she doesn't appear to be. So I'll try and get an update from Nina.
Okay, thank you, Mark. The next one, Richard was to catch up with Jason Glasson and David Stone around the health and safety files. So it was a sort of related issue. Do you want to give an update there, Richard?
I have failed on that, but I have been informed by Mr. Merry that 3D and PCF are being looked at in advance for RIS 3 and how we're going to be doing certain things moving forward.
Okay, thank you. The next one was an action for myself to contact National Highways in general to identify if there are any GIS working groups. So we've had some success there. Myself and Mark have now spoken with Thomas Coleman, who's the National Highways GIS lead. We also spoke with Nigel Yeatman, who's one of the area team asset managers, with regard to well, initially potentially founding a GIS working group, but also the creation of a national GIS hazard layer, and quite constructive discussions there. Mark is going to pick that up later as part of his presentation. Do you want to provide a quick update at this point in time, Mark? Or
yeah, I'll probably pick that one up later, Doug. But yes, had a very positive response from Thomas Coleman this morning, actually. He's certainly keen to support the health and safety file digitalization using GIS, and he may well be getting in touch with yourself, Richard, among others, to sort of garner support and yeah, obviously speak to the right people within National Highways to make that happen. So yes, I think an encouraging move forward there, but I'll say a bit more when I do my piece later on, Doug.
Okay. Just picking up from the previous comment, Katie said she's still happy to support, although she says she's now on the other side of the fence. So hopefully pick that up later. In respect to GIS, there was a comment around Syria and whether there was a Syria GIS community. And again, Richard, you were to speak to Jason Glasson on that as well, which I understand that hasn't happened yet. But
no.
Okay. And similarly with the BIM working group, and that sort of linked back to David Stone. And again, we're still waiting for confirmation as to what the status of that group, if it still exists or not. Okay, the next comment was around the safety by design template, which has been incorporated within the supplier quality plan, the PCF document. And just to say that we're picking this up within the design risk management standardization group as part of the update of RTB 26, which is safety by design, and hopefully will become health and safety by design. The next action, guidance documents for designers are set out for the requirements for inspection will be of value. I don't know if Martin is on the call as yet. We got Martin. Sounds like we haven't. He did provide an update, and it's something he's looking into and will provide further details in due course on that one. The next action was for Martin again around the design for maintenance task and finish group. I think we're getting a bit of
feedback
there. Maybe from Jim's side, I don't know. Jim. So yes, yes, in respect to the design for maintenance presentation, so he will be providing an update. This sort of ties back to the case studies that he presented at a previous principal design working group. So we'll, and he's, as he said, he's on the case on that one. Going back to RTB 26, there was a comment around the need to improve it in respect to OD coverage, particularly around maintenance issues. And again, that's something that we're looking to pick up as part of the design risk management standardization group. So it's one of the actions there. And then the final comments. So SCSLG information on the safety website appears to be out of date. Could this be reviewed? And I think, Richard, you've spoken to
I've spoken to several people on this because
okay.
at the end of the day, we're losing a bit of identity with the Hub web page. The Hub web page is fantastic. It's got a huge amount of information, but I think if we're honest, it's extremely difficult to navigate. And on the call earlier this week with John and Mel Clark, we were talking about how we can possibly have a different sort of structure of the web pages. I know I've got a meeting that Katie's going to line up to talk with Phil Farr about the existing hub to make it a bit more intuitive. Because if you went on that to buy something, you give up very quickly and go to somebody else. So we do need to make it more intuitive and keep it up to date. That's vital. One of the things that came out of the 3R webinar that we had last week with the Supply Chain Safety Leadership Group was trying to get more information going out via the monthly Hub newsletter to people with links in as well to sort of push things out. So it's a bit of tell and sell taking place. I don't know if Katie, you've got anywhere with that at all yet?
Yes, it's on my well, it's on the slides.
All right,
So
I'll shut up.
That's all right. You carry on.
Right.
No. That's
So
yeah. No, call to arms with communication, definitely.
Yeah, we need to get better at it, and we keep talking about it, not doing anything. So we do need to do something.
Okay. Sorry, go on.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. Katie again. I think there's just one comment in the chat, Chris Harding. Yes, the GIS team lead is Thomas Coleman. And Mark Lamport is in sort of in discussion, as you heard, with Thomas at the moment. So that concludes the Masters Arising. So we will now move on to the next presentation, which is going to be provided by Daniel Lacey, which is an update on the National Safety Control Group review group. Daniel, are you?
Okay,
Yes,
I'm
thank
here.
you. Yeah,
I am here. Sorry, I was about 5 minutes late. Traffic was pretty bad. I'll just make sure that you can see my presentation. Can you see that?
Through, yes, thank you.
Brilliant. So just a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the past few months of NSCR GRE, the World of National Safety Control Review Group. There's 5 topics to cover in this next 10-15 minutes, 3 for information and 2 that were for acceptance. So I'll just run through them. The first one was a health, safety and wellbeing moment, which was an interesting one. It was a newly published report from the European Transport Safety Council, which shows that half of the road deaths in Europe occur on rural roads. And in 2022, it was around 10,000 people died on the rural roads of Europe. So that's more than half of all of the road deaths. And we looked at how we can improve our understanding of this, and we discussed that we need to work collectively with other organisations to better understand how we can create a real difference and guard against a few factors, really. Safety initiative fatigue, particularly for social demographics that may have historically been really difficult to engage with, because obviously they're more rural, probably have less to do with motorway driving and less knowledge. So we looked at that area. One of the key findings from the discussion we had, NSCRG, is we really need to understand the key and recurrent causation factors. So what's causing these? And we need to have further conversations on this with the Road Safety Division based on this report to further understand how the NSCRG can support this. And there's a link there. I don't know if the slides will be circulated to have a look at the report. I think it'd be a really good read. It was really interesting. So yeah, we're looking at how we can move this forward and work together to look at down into the detail of it all really. So that was the first one. Second one's really interesting. It's cyber safety and cyber security. So this is for information as well, and it's a follow-up from last November. The attendance was to follow up on ongoing work since that date and what our next generation cyber futures capability will be, and it's linking in the digital road safety. And there was 5 recommendations or 5 key tasks that are already funded, which are interesting to see here. So the first ones is develop a common vocabulary across safety and security. I think we don't know enough about this. Some people call them different things, very techy. Some people don't understand it. So it's looking at getting this vocabulary where everyone understands what we're talking about. A review of the safety and security risk assessment processes to identify similarities and opportunities to streamline it. And then to establish a safety and security working group to be a technical authority, which we felt was needed, and develop simulations and case studies so we can actually articulate the link between safety and security. And then the last one was to have a greater consideration of cyber related risks across national highways through awareness and education campaigns, which is missing in some areas. So really good 5 tasks which are already funded and already identified that we can work on. The feedback from us was, discussion is critical to make this cybersecurity important, as it needs to be brought into people's everyday vocabulary. It's not that well known and historically not really considered. It does impact on safety, and alignment with existing governance and approach will be critical to successfully embed this across the business. So what we're going to try and do to facilitate this is a member of our team, the safety risk requirements team, will be part of the safety and security working group. That'll be Ron. And then a cybersecurity representative will become a principal NSCRG attendee, so they can bring more information to the group every month. So that should support alignment, understanding, and respective governance. NSCRG attendees will also share and support embedment of this work and support where we can moving forward. So really interesting piece that was, and obviously it's a big part of the future of our roads, so it needs to be adopted. And then there's one more for information. So my team, the safety risk and requirements team, completed a case study review of the 2016 Croydon tram crash or derailment. And the objective of this was to identify transferable lessons, so lessons learnt for national highways. And Luke in my team presented to NSCRG to prompt discussion and for principal attendees to feed back into the business. So the key learning outcomes from that was that National Highways should continue to embrace audits and reviews, which my team are going to be picking up any day now. There may be value in reassessing the organisational perception of risk, and then the continued application and assurance of safety risk assessments throughout the business, which we are going to do a lot of work on outreaching and making people understand. Furthermore, the presentation highlighted the crucial role of National Highways, Home Safe and Well and Be the Change campaigns in fostering that safety culture where everyone feels empowered to speak up and take action. And I think it might be a good session if maybe Luke came along and just did 20 minutes on this for you guys. I feel that would be a really beneficial session. So it's something we could probably work out over the next two or three meetings.
Yeah, certainly send the details through.
Yeah, I'll send it through. And then the following 2 are for acceptance. So this is the VRS review program overview. So in response to commitments within the 2nd and 3rd year Smart Motorway Stocktake progress reports, 620 kilometres of ALR carriageway has been assessed to identify opportunities where VRS could be removed or relocated. So of all of that carriageway assessed, 33 kilometres or 5% was identified as an opportunity to remove or set back. An SRA, a safety risk assessment, was completed, which my team had a good involvement in, and it's identified that if the removal's progress, there's likely to be a reduction in risk for fall hazards, which is a benefit, including H135 vehicle stops in live lane. But the SRA also identified an increase or a disbenefit in risk for verge incident management and rejoining the carriageway hazards. So if a vehicle's on the verge and then wants to rejoin, picking up speed and obviously debris, etc., could be a risk. So that was highlighted as well. So the project considered the safety benefit gained outweighs the safety disbenefit and recommends the removal of the VRS. So it's an extra place to stop safely on the verge. The feedback from NSCRG was that when CD377 is updated, there's an opportunity to enhance advice for designers to clarify that VRS should be a last rather than primary resort. That would reflect the ERIC principle. And there was an action from that to the project to engage with document owners. That should be kicking off soon. We also discussed about the term verge. It's currently absent from our communication strategy or any campaigns to our customers. So there was an action there as well. The NSCRG are shared with comms to consider the addition of verge into future campaign work. And I think that's been done, and I think there's a bit of a negative response to that. So NSCRG also noted that 33 kilometres of the VRS can be set back or is technically not required on approximately a 50% ratio. And if the business accepts the project's proposal, this will need to be built into a future programme of work, as current NEAR programmes are likely too far advanced to accommodate this. The decision was that the safety work undertaken was accepted as suitably and sufficiently managing safety risk for all those affected by the proposed activity. So that was a really interesting conversation that we had, but it was well evidenced. So that is the 4th of the 5th. And I have just one more to cover, guys.
Dan, before you move off that slide, Paul Brown had his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Paul.
Yeah, just to follow up on that one, it's been a topic of much discussion amongst certainly with myself and talent.
Yeah,
and that's the impact of taking away VRS from your maintenance workers who have to access certain things alongside the roadside.
Yeah,
was that presumably that featured as part of the safety risk assessment, and somebody came to a conclusion that the workers are less at risk than your motorist who chooses to break down in lane 1?
It did. That was covered off. If you want, I'll try and get more information on that and ping it over. I think it was consulted and it was discussed. I can't remember the outcome of it though, but I can certainly do some digging and get back to you.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's been a topic for a little while, Dan, on this.
I bet, yeah.
You know, there have been discussions about sections of footpath. I think there was a particular one alongside the M20 which focused people's attention.
Yeah. 200
yards of footpath, 1.5 meters off the edge of lane 1. With no VRS that the maintenance workers were expected to use. Okay. And then a strategic safety risk assessment on that identified that, that was acceptably safe.
Yeah.
And I think talent went, no, it's not.
Yeah, it's understandable, isn't it?
not if I'm the person that's got to walk along that footpath, it's not.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'll be interested, and I'm sure that there'll be others who'll be interested in seeing that as well. If we've got to manage our design teams and tell them to take out VRS where rapid service should go. Brilliant. All right, thanks, Dan.
Yeah, completely understand. No, I'll do some digging. All right, and I'll get back in touch with you, Paul.
And we have another question from Katie.
Hi, Katie.
Hi, Daniel. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good, sir. So just a quick question. I'm thinking about the Go Left campaign. People in stranded vehicles where there's no area of refuge required to get out of their vehicle the left-hand side and get behind barrier where it exists.
Exactly, yeah.
So has that been a consideration? So I'm not just talking about stranded vehicles and people that are still within their vehicles. If they're out of their vehicles, they'll be stood in the verge with no barrier.
Yeah, that was discussed. And that was part of the discussion going to comms and talking through to them, because we have all these campaigns about Go Left. All the advice from the customer contact centre is go behind the nearest safety barrier, get out the car and get behind.
We're taking it away.
And it's conflicting information. So I think that is the difficult point there. So we've been telling people and spent a lot of money on all of these campaigns, but if we're taking it away, then you can lose some trust in that demographic of our customers. Exactly. So it's definitely a massive consideration. If I can find this paper out, I think it'll be a really good one to talk through in more detail.
Brilliant.
So yeah, brilliant point though. Completely agree.
Thank you.
Just appears to be counterintuitive, and they work to remove 5% of the barrier. The cost and the potential risk for the road worker and the road user disruption seems slightly bizarre, and also you're leaving a legacy of where people have have been brainwashed to turn left. So
yeah, that's a
really,
really valid point. But it's great. It's a good decision point, a good discussion point. Sorry, but yeah, let me dive into this in more detail. It's probably something I could share. Maybe at the next one. If not, I'll circulate something.
Excellent.
Awesome. It's a good one to talk about. And finally, it's just the risk register. This is for acceptance as well. So it's been reviewed and updated with input from the safety risk managers and owners across national highways. OCD attended to discuss updates to their risks for operational technology and performance availability. An assurance was given for current risk statuses and latest risk treatments, including bringing the Technology Operations Centre, so the TOC, under the remit of OCD at the 1st of April, to give end-to-end ownership and accountability, so more knowledge and more of an understanding of what's working and getting things fixed quicker. The feedback on that was that we were content with the updates to the operational technology safety risks and how they're being treated. So there's definitely work being done in the background and improvements. And OCD are going to go away and gather further data on roadside asset access, including whether off-network access, so ONA, was available and if it was used. This could prompt action for improved off-network access use, reducing road space booking requirements, which can impact on repair timeframes. So it's a really good safety point there. So can we work remotely and get these things fixed? OCD will provide quarterly operational technology performance and availability updates to the NSCRG to look at the progression and the improvements. NSCRG decision on that was that we were happy with the updates and they were accepted for finalisation and continued monitoring. So it's not put to bed. We're going to keep looking at it and making sure that they're on top of it. But that was the last thing that I wanted to cover today, guys. Look at that.
Okay. Thank you,
Almost
Dan.
on time.
Any questions for him, the young man himself?
There are a couple of comments in the chat. So Dave Ollerenshaw said a significant number of operative injuries relate to slips and trips on the soft verge. Additional vehicles on the soft verge will increase the number of hidden ruts. Should we consider some form of semi-hardening of this area?
That's a really valid point. What do you guys think? I think it's definitely a risk. With more vehicles, more debris, more damage to the verge, the surface. There's obviously a higher risk of trips and falls there. It's a really good question. It's something that we need to put to the guys who are bringing it forward. It's something I can take back and discuss at NSCRG as well.
Yes, probably a valid way forward.
Very valid.
Yeah, Paul Brown has said, is OCD a new name for OD?
Yeah, I think so.
OCD standing for?
One sec.
Operations Control Division or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, Operations Control Division. So it's been changed to OCD.
Oh, it says there. Yeah.
From Operations Directorate.
Yeah.
Right. Nice to know.
You can never have enough acronyms, you know that.
You can never have enough. We need to throw an extra letter in somewhere, don't we?
Exactly.
Okay, there's a comment from Robert Legg. VRS requirements. How is the requirement for VRS assessed? Is it clear cut as per the RAP assessment or a risk assessment beyond CD 377 requirements?
Who is responsible of the acceptance of reduced VRS provision if it's not in line with CD 377? I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Yeah.
It's not an easy one.
Yeah, if it's a case that we need to go to WebDAS and SES, so obviously we need to bring those specialists online as early as possible. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. I'll note that one down and take it away.
Yeah, comment from Neil Mackay. Vehicle receipts provision. Have you compared to other countries? I have recently involved in work opportunities in Italy, and the provision of VRS systems exceed the UK greatly, especially in verges.
That was not brought to the presentation, no. So that's another thing I can take away. It's a great point.
And Paul's response to the VRS, will this require a departure?
That's a good point. Okay, brilliant, guys. I will take all that away.
The point on that, Dan, is just if NSCRG has taken a decision that we don't have to comply with the RAP assessments and the CD, then presumably we should have some way of getting that through SES without having to go through a full protracted departure process because of what we're being told to do. So it's not a departure. So someone who needs to rewrite CD 377 to take on board what NSCRG's decided to do. Otherwise, we're all going to be chasing our tails.
Yeah, spending more money and chasing your tails.
Absolutely, yeah.
Exactly, mate. Brilliant points. I'll go back to the guys who led on this. These are some really good questions. I can take it back and then hopefully get back to you all, if not at the next meeting, beforehand. Awesome.
Okay, we can certainly share if you want. We can include an appendix to the minutes if you want to. Get something across in the next week or so, and we'll add it to the minutes before they get issued.
Perfect.
Is that okay?
Sounds like a plan.
Yep. Okay.
Thanks, Doug.
Right. Thank you. Well, I'm sort of panicking slightly in the background because my next two presenters don't appear to be on the call. But yes, could I ask, is Steve Naylor on the call? Can't quite see him at the moment. We are a couple of minutes early, but would Drew Gardner be on the call? Okay. Would John? Would you mind jumping ahead to do an update on the Healthier and Safer by Design working group? Would that be okay?
No problem. No problem.
Do you want to bring your presentation? Would be yes, that would be easier. Yeah. Okay. I can monitor in the background then. Thank you.
Can everybody see that?
Can.
Yes, fine, thank you.
Brilliant. So this is going to be quite a short update. Just move to there. So since our last Principal Designer Working Group, we've done quite a lot of work in the background. So I've resubmitted the common intent to John Dowsett and Andrew Cox for them to review. I then had a meeting with Andrew to discuss it and go through it. There was a couple of amendments that we agreed. So they need to be just finalised, and then hopefully it will go back and be published. So that should be happening in the next month or so. We're also looking at developing the performance triangle. So in the way that the SCSLG has an overall performance triangle for how people have completed the like the risk profiling activity, the safety strategy and submitted it and all those kinds of things, and had senior members sign up and attend the webinars. Each of the working groups is going to have their own performance triangle. So I discussed some outline topics that could be included in ours with Andrew, but Phil Gregson from the performance team is now been assigned to the Healthier and Safer by Design group and will be joining our monthly meetings from June to do some work on that performance triangle and look at what that looks like. One of the things that we had been discussing that was in the common intent was around potential use of risk profiling as an exercise that would be part of the process, looking at, separate from a design risk register, but sort of looking at the risk profile of the scheme and then being able to demonstrate improvements in terms of, what that looks like, reduction of exposure, reduction of number of people, reduction of various things, and how we can demonstrate and document that. One of the things we've looked at is if we used the 5x5 matrix that we've discussed at length, I think, in this group, and that was included in Raising the Bar 26, if that was put in the background of the template, potentially that would be a standardization of risk through the back door without everybody having to rejig their own personal company's management system. Because if we could get a form that needed to be completed as part of a scheme, i.e. included in the passport for 3D or something like that, it brings in standardization without everybody, if you've got a 7x7 and somebody's got a 6x6 and someone's got a 5x5 with different descriptors, it kind of brings all that into one, because it's a standard form that needs to be completed by everybody. And obviously it'll be updated through the stage gate process, so we won't get it being filled in retrospectively at the end, where a lot of the information's missed off. So that was some of the thinking behind that. We acknowledged that there is a lack of readily available data relating to design, and especially relating to ill health, initially regarding site investigation works, but ongoing further than that, there is just generally a lack of data relating to design. I think this has been discussed before, but a lot of investigations tend to stop at the site level, and it's very rare that we see something that goes back and says, well, you know, with the design implications, or were design decisions a contributory factor when we investigate things. So ongoing discussions regarding noise, dust, vibration and musculoskeletal issues arising from site investigation activities. This is something that we're looking at as a group to produce like a best practice guide. The idea is that there's going to be a framework of activities following on from the work that we did with the Principal Designer Working Group last year around tasks. So the idea would be, we're looking at site investigation, so GI, structures and pavement initially, and we'll produce a best practice document. And the idea then is we'd have a framework of the other activities, and we'd ask some members of this group if you've got some best practice in these areas to assist us in sort of collating and developing the documents further. I had a catch up yesterday with Steve Perkins about the work he's been doing with healthy highways in the southeast, and discussing how design can make a difference. It was a very interesting conversation. He's just finding out, he produced a report for, I think it was for the southeast region and Connect Plus. So he's just finding out whether he can share that and his slides further, and when he does, he believes he will be able to, but I'll share them with the group, because it's very interesting reading in terms of the outputs and the findings and recommendations relating to design. And you know, there's a number of steps that I think we'll be able to take forward with our working group in the SCSLG, and then ongoing into this group. So looking at things like training, you know, a lot of people have that safety in design, CDM type understanding and training within our businesses, but how many of us have health in design training? What does that look like? You know, generally people understand things like asbestos, you know, bird guano, lead, and various other sort of standard issues, but there's other things that probably affect far more people on a daily basis that we're not capturing, and they are significant risks. So that's a piece of work that's ongoing. So in terms of next steps, as I mentioned earlier, we're just getting to the point where we've got the final draft, which I'm hoping will be issued in the next month or so. We're going to start developing the performance triangle, look at developing the risk profile template, which obviously I'll bring to this group, and we'll have comment and input. But the idea is that it would be usable by everybody. So it needs to be a scalable document, but it needs to be something that people will use and not overcomplicated. And then continuing discussion regarding dust, noise, vibration and musculoskeletal issues related to site investigation work. And I think that's it from me. I'll stop sharing because I can't see anything at the minute.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
Nothing's come through as yet. Anybody wish to raise any issues with John? I think you're okay there, John. But thank you for the update. Oh, Richard's got his hand up now.
Yeah, there have, and there are some ongoing occupational health studies taking place on the Alliance, and I've chased Tom George again to get that to be shared with us.
Well, I've got a call with Tom, I think, at 12 o'clock. So I'm going to double check that. The other thing is I'm going to chase it up with Sinead, because she's now replaced Tony Slater, I believe, in the occupational hygiene group, occupational health and hygiene group, and the work with, is it Hygiene Partners? I think are doing the work for Smart Motorways Alliance. That's all been sort of managed through that working group, but there's not been a meeting for a while. So I've not had an update, but I'll if you don't get any further if he doesn't respond this morning, I'll speak to Tom and then I'll raise it with Sinead.
Okie dokie.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. I don't think I haven't seen anything further come through. Okay, so thank you very much, John, for the update. And I see that Steve's joined the call. So hi, Steve. Thank you for joining. Do you want to give you a quick introduction of yourself and the project you've been involved with at HSE? Thank you.
Yeah,
and then if you'd like, do you want to share your slides, or shall
I will if that's okay, Doug.
That's fine.
Just a couple of changes since I last shared them with you, so I'm quite happy to share if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, thank you.
That's great. So good morning, everyone. My name's Steve Naylor, and I'm a research lead based in HSE Science and Research Centre. I work out of a data science and data analytics team. So we provide support and services to HSE around use of data analytics and data science to support HSE's regulatory function. We also have an R&D and a research arm within our team, and it's with that hat on that I'd like to just provide a brief on a project that we've recently started called the Smarter Regulation Sandbox. And just explore with you whether it's something that National Highways and the wider supply chain has potential interest in getting involved. But I'll just pull my slide deck up, and then I will provide a brief on the project, and then hopefully if there's time at the end, just invite any questions and just see what you think of what we're planning to do. Okay, so as I said, this project's called the Smarter Regulation Sandbox, and it's a collaboration between HSE, the HSE's research program called Discovering Safety, and a not-for-profit called the Safety Tech Accelerator. Let me just. Okay. So just some background to the Smarter Regulation Sandbox project. We've secured some funding from a part of government called the Government Office for Technology Transfer. They're part of the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology. And they have a research pot called the Knowledge Asset Grant Fund. And we've secured £250,000 from that fund to run this regulatory sandbox. HSE ran a similar initiative back end of last year, and it proved very successful. So we're really happy that we're able to kind of secure additional funding to run our second regulatory sandbox. Focus is a little bit different this time. It's all centered around smarter regulation and how if we could make regulations machine readable and guidance documentation machine readable, what clever things could we do to improve health and safety performance on construction projects? It's a 14-month study. We started January of this year, and it's running until March of next year. And we're working closely with another part of government called the Smarter Regulation Directorate, who are part of the Department for Business and Trade. And they've been working on a similar initiative over the last few months. called the Open Regulation Platform. And the idea with the Open Regulation Platform is to create a digital asset that brings together regulations across lots of different domains, not just health and safety, but what they're looking to do is create a knowledge resource that can help duty holders who are obviously grappling with challenges of meeting their regulatory responsibilities in understanding regulatory requirements and how they can meet those requirements. The focus of the project is construction in the first instance, but in the longer term, we're looking potentially to widen out the scope to include other sectors. When we talk about regulatory requirements, we're talking about requirements in quite a wide sense. So obviously, fundamental are primary and secondary health and safety regulations that HSE actually enforces, but we're also interested in other guidance and documentation that is often used and developed to be used in parallel with different regulations. So different HSE guidance on how to comply with different regulatory requirements. Also interested in potentially technical standards published by different standards bodies such as BSI and ISO, for example. Also interested potentially in other business generated rules that are potentially integrated into procurement rules, contracts, and potentially insurance requirements. And the other data set that we're really interested in working with is performance data linked to compliance to different regulations and different guidance. So potentially data that HSE generates routinely through the discharge of its regulatory function. So things like RIDDOR data, but also HSE's inspection work and findings of investigations, and also parallel data sets that construction projects are generating. So the scope of the data sets that we're looking to work with is potentially quite wide. And the aims of the initiative really are to look to support the construction industry in navigating areas of construction project delivery where the requirements landscape is potentially complex. So potentially lots of different regulations and standards that are in scope and need to be complied with and considered as part of the delivery of the projects. And what we're looking to do with the sandbox is to create an environment that brings together representatives from the construction industry and representatives from the tech sector, both in the UK and internationally. So companies like software vendors that develop software that construction projects use, but also tech companies that are developing digital solutions that can help with assurance of health and safety on construction projects and monitoring of compliance and the extent to which risk control systems are operating effectively. It also obviously provides HSE with an opportunity and a conduit to engage with the sector to consider how innovation can change the way in which construction projects can be delivered safely, and to understand what the current state of the art is in relation to digital technologies, and potentially draw a new line in the sand regarding what ALARP looks like for the delivery of construction projects and specific work. The other thing that we're really keen to do as part of the work is to look at the open regulation platform as it stands at the moment and the functionality that's part of the platform, and consider potentially how it could be further developed to enhance its functionality and its usability and value for duty holders. The key thing, obviously, that we're really keen to do is, HSE's 10-year strategy has a strong focus on innovation and making sure that regulation and the way HSE regulates is pro-innovation. So we're really keen to see how we can kind of marry up all these various things to feed into HSE's strategy over the next 10 years. Timeline for the project, as I said, we started in January of this year, and we're currently going through the process of a industry reach out, where we're looking to speak with representatives from across the construction industry to understand some of the challenges linked to compliance and navigating regulations, where potentially digital solutions could help. So the aim will be by the end of May to have a short list of use cases that will be fed into the sandbox and provide the focus of work over the next 9 or 10 weeks. So the aim will be to complete all the feasibility studies that we carry out as part of the sandbox in the autumn, and then we'll be looking to pull everything together and disseminate the findings. So mentioned some of the activities that we're carrying out at the moment. We have a website set up where companies and representatives from the sector can submit ideas and expressions of interest. We're carrying out over the next month or so marketing and comms activities linked to the project, and we're also carrying out targeted reach out to existing contacts that we have, including national highways and the supply chain. So the sorts of organisations that we're looking to speak to, clients of construction projects is obviously a big one, but other people with a vested interest in the successful delivery and safe delivery of construction projects. So organisations such as Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 contractors that are delivering projects, designers and consultants that are providing support to projects, construction industry bodies and associations, standards bodies, insurers, and also other regulators besides HSE. And then obviously, as I've mentioned, the various digital solutions providers that serve the sector. And what we want to do is, as I said, understand some of the key challenges and some of the key opportunities for using digital and data science to address some of those challenges. So as of the 1st of May, we've had 15 expressions of interest submitted through the website. We've approached 25 stakeholders through various networks, and we've carried out 38 introductory calls, 27 deeper dive calls where we've been fleshing out use case ideas in a bit more detail, and a few dropouts, but generally the response and the feedback and the interest has been positive. Some of the organisations that we've spoken to date across those different categories, I won't go through them here, but it just highlights the range of people that we've been speaking to and the range of use cases and challenges that are being generated as part of those discussions. I mean, just to give you a flavour of some of the challenge areas that have been surfaced through the discussions that we've had to date. Obviously, the key one is, any construction work activity where the regulatory landscape and the requirements landscape is complex, and there's many of those that we've identified through discussions. Also interests in, particularly with contractors, in how you go from external requirements that are defined in regulations and standards and HSE guidance into effective and compliant internal operating procedures, and the extent to which we can use digital and data science to actually do that. Also interested in I suppose, the the next stage in how you go from compliant operating procedures to the documentation of compliance at the point of works and the adherence to safe working procedures. So lots of interest in that space as well. Also lots of interest in how we can potentially take performance and compliance data and map that back to specific requirements as part of the process of measuring and documenting compliance. Lots of interest also in just focusing on the ability to actually benchmark performance. So comparing performance to others as opposed to comparing performance to specific requirements. And then lots of interest in not necessarily focusing on what specific regulatory requirements are, but being able to go from defined work scenarios, work activities, and work schedules that are planned on construction projects and converting them into potentially risk scenarios that could eventuate and potentially effective risk treatment strategies as well. So lots of different dimensions and perspectives that we're looking to explore as part of the core body of work that's planned for the sandbox. Just to give you an idea of some of the technology solutions areas that we've been exploring with some of the technology providers and the software vendors that we've been speaking to. It just provides a different perspective on the sorts of interests there are and the sorts of solutions that are available and being worked on. So we're really interested in the potential to use digital solutions to help populate the open regulation platform. So the potential, for example, to be able to automatically mark up regulation documentation according to specific metadata standards. The ORP have their own metadata standard that operates at the level of individual documents and regulations. We're really interested in the idea of using technologies to potentially mark up regulations and requirements at a finer level of granularity. So, for example, could we actually create machine readable requirements that operate at the level of individual clauses? And is it possible to use technologies such as large language models and generative AI to actually support that process? Really interested in technologies and digital solutions that look to encode specific requirements and create rules, potentially build rules into checklists and other things that are used as part of auditing work that's carried out on construction projects. Really interested also in technologies that are potentially have applications for assuring compliance at the point of works. So things like wireless sensors, wearable devices, the use of computer vision, for example. The previous sandbox that we delivered the back end of last year, that the focus was very much on what industrial safety tech was out there that could be used on construction projects. So really interested in building on the work that was carried out last year. Also interested in technology that allows you to actually map performance back to specific requirements. But basically, taking the process the other way. Obviously, once requirements have been digitalized and made machine readable, one of the obvious use cases is the ability to actually auto check construction projects, whether that be the design of them or the delivery in the construction phase, back to those requirements. And is it possible to actually create digital tools that allow auto checking against different requirements? Lots of interest also in the PAS 1192 Part 6 document that details a standard framework for sharing health and safety information on construction projects, and also the related sister standard ISO 19650 Part 6. So is there the potential to create digital tools that embed some of these standards and requirements, documentations around information requirements into some of these digital tools. Really interested also in golden thread and the requirements under the CDM regulations to manage information, health and safety information over the life cycle of projects, and other ways of actually bringing in digital solutions to be able to do that. And then also, with the emergence and widespread use of technologies such as generative AI and chatbots moving into the mainstream, is it possible to bring in some of those technologies to serve up this information once it's made machine readable, so construction projects can access and interact with it in more effective ways? So it gives you an idea of the sorts of challenge areas and solutions that are in scope for this project. What I was keen to do as part of an opportunity to speak with you is just to, well, first off, open up the floor to some questions, and longer term, what I'm really interested in exploring is the potential for National Highways to feed in some of its own specific use cases to the project, and if there's an appetite in actually doing that. So I'll stop sharing there. I'll stop and open up the floor to questions if there's any.
Okay,
Thanks.
Steve, there's some comments in the chat. I don't know if you can see the chat at the moment, but Martin Sherlock said really interested in the outcomes of this work. We're exploring ways to interrogate our largely unstructured historical lessons learned data to extract and retain lessons. Will you be coming back to share outcomes and findings, which would be fantastic if you could?
Yeah, really happy to. I mean, obviously, being able to actually create feedback loops from past projects and using routine data that's generated to actually inform the future direction of travel of future projects is something that we're really interested in. It's an area that potentially the Open Regulation Platform are interested in considering. So it not just being a portal for requirements information, but is there the potential and interest in actually using it as a focus for bringing performance and regulatory intelligence and compliance intelligence data together? So yeah, I mean, it's very much in scope of the work.
Okay. Katie's said there are a lot of useful initiatives in other industries too, not just construction, that may have cross benefits, e.g. lean. Current regulations and guidance is very construction heavy.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we're really interested in is the interest in actually considering the challenges of navigating different regulatory regimes besides health and safety. So for example, is there interest in other regulators feeding their requirements documentation in, so we can consider the wider picture and not just health and safety? And I suppose that the same stands for the industry sectors that are providing the focus as well. So yeah, interesting point.
Okay. Nick's risk comments around I3P, the Infrastructure Industry Innovation Partnership, could be a good vehicle. Is that something you're aware of?
We have spoken to I3P and the team at the I3P. So yeah, I mean, there are obviously a ready-made stakeholder group and community of practice that we're really keen to work with and engage with. And the idea, I'm sure, will be to disseminate findings across that group. So yeah, that's a good shout.
Okay. I mean, certainly from ourselves as a principal standard working group, and we have a number of task and finish groups, and we link in with the supply chain safety leadership group and highway safety hub, and we've all got initiatives that are looking to improve data, knowledge management, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Arcadis, I think you're probably aware of the KTP we're on with at the moment around CDM compliance. So there are lots of initiatives out there. Pav said, Richard, you could coordinate projects be developed with HSE Health and Safety Hub or PD Working Group? Question mark there.
I could do, but I don't know why, Doug. You removed me from the chat, so I can't read it.
Oh, right, sorry.
That's good. You're just volunteering me for things. Yeah, I need to speak to like the likes of Tom Merry and others in the team to find out how we can best support Stephen.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Roger, there is some wider learning across industry to understand what machine readable documentation looks like.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true. I mean, I've mentioned just in the brief that the Open Regulation Platform, as it stands at the moment, only considers documents at higher levels. And from the discussions and the engagement that we've carried out over the last few months, we know that there's appetite in extending the scope of that. So the ability to actually create metadata standards that operate at finer granularity is certainly something that we're keen to explore. And there are groups that have been working on different frameworks that operate at that level of granularity. So we're really interested in seeing, can we use some of these other markup languages and metadata standards to kind of extend what has been started with the Open Regulation Platform. So yeah, lots of interest in what's happening in that space for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else with any comments? Can't see any hands up. Pav, yes, you got your hand up.
Hi, Steve. Have you found that there's a problem of different languages that different standards and everything else is using? Because on another sort of scheme that I'm working on, we're finding an issue about ontology, i.e. the DMRB is our standard that we're using. I also have a possibility of just giving a case study example about using drones, which we're using across the board, both for surveys. And what's happening with that particular one, which is a nice case study, is that the CAA are changing their regulatory requirements. National highways have their own standard for the deployment of drones, and also you have to have risk assessment for under the Health and Safety Work Act. And so that's an example of a particular use case. And my request to the team is we need other use cases of problems, that this might not be the first bite of the cake, that we might actually get examples. I've been speaking about the digital health and safety file, which has been a sort of challenge that we've had with operations directorate area teams. So it's a too difficult to resolve problem of how do we turn that into a digital health and safety file. So there are some aspects that we just need to develop the scope, but they are projects that we need to develop in the same sandbox. So if you could think about extending the sandbox, we might have other issues that need to head your way, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, that sounds good, Pav. I mean, it's true that I think because the scope of this work is quite wide in terms of, the requirements documentation that's in scope. It's regulations are obviously written in their own unique ways. ISO standards are written, in a different way. HSE guidance, again, and also HSE obviously has, lots of other different routes of communicating what good looks like, through various practical toolkits that it has available. And I think the challenge that we have is creating a framework that can take all this different documentation, regardless of the way it's communicated, and being able to create digital tools that can make sense of it as a collective.
Thank you.
That's great, Doug. If there's no other questions, quite happy to leave it there. I mean, you have my slide deck, so if there's others that want to on the call that want to reach out separately, feel free. Happy to arrange some some more detailed one-to-one discussions, but appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about the project today.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Sorry, I was talking to myself for a second there. Sorry. Yes, yeah, thank you. Really, really interesting, really informative. And as you say, if you know, anything in terms of asks from this group, please let us know, and I'll distribute wider. If you want to add anything further, I can attach it to the minutes as well, in terms of links or etc. And it would be great for you to come back at some point in the future as you start to pull results together. So thank you very much, and yeah, hopefully we'll speak in the future. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. So if I can just suggest we have a 10-minute break. If that's okay with everybody. So if we're back at 5:02, and we'll have Drew to present on the 360 site camera. Okay, so thank you, everybody.
Sandra, WhatsApp audio.
Hello, darling.
Hello, darling. How are you?
Okay, hi everybody. Hope everybody's back from having a drink. Is it possible to put hands up for one or two if people are back?
Thousands, millions.
Millions, yes. Yeah. Okay, well, I see Drew's on the call. Would you like to share your presentation, Drew, and quick introductions, etc.? I think you just on.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
That's the. Thank you very much for that. Yeah. So my name is Drew Gardner, and I've got a small company based in the south west of England, and it's called On-Site Collaboration. I just want to share. Yeah, just give me a second. There we go. Brilliant. Okay. And I've got a presentation now about our work that we're doing with High Speed 2. This started with as an innovation execution project just about 2 years ago now. And it has evolved into something which has been, super popular, really. Now, 360-degree imagery is everywhere. I mean, we're seeing it more and more all the time. And it gives a sense of space and a sense of place like nothing else out there. Because it lets you really see what it's like to be there. And you can go to places that you wouldn't normally be able to visit, whether it's riding high on the top of a plane or on the London Eye, or in a Formula One tyre change situation, and you get a full detailed view. Now, we've even had 360-degree imagery that we use in our everyday lives in terms of Google Street View. We use it all the time. We don't think twice about checking a location out now. We want to find a little bit more about it, where we're going, what problems we're going to run into, just whether we're on holiday or whether we're visiting somewhere. We use it all the time. And yet, this wouldn't seem to make 360-degree cameras a really great candidate for construction sites, because they're really busy places, and getting a full view of what's happening on a construction site can be very challenging. And no matter how many cameras you have, you are going to miss incidents, because where you place the camera at the beginning may not be where you want the camera to be as a project progresses. And you're always relying on somebody putting the camera in the right place or somebody going out to record the information when they're meant to. And with a 360-degree camera in the right strategic position, as this little graphic we put together shows, you don't miss anything. Now, that said, 360-degree cameras offer some real benefits, but while they've sort of made their way onto construction sites, it's mainly in the form of dome cameras. Now, what's the problem with dome cameras? This is actual imagery from a 360 dome camera. Because of their design, they attract water, dust, and there is no known cleaning mechanism for them other than somebody rocking up with a cloth or a duster or something, and sometimes they're out the way, which means the image quality is degraded quite quickly. They tend to use quite small sensors, so they're not very good in low light, and their overall quality resolution is very low. So bringing all this together, we came up with a solution which is a little bit different. And we came up with cameras which we called on-site collaboration. Now, initially they were conceived as cameras where people could actually leave comments, drop pins, and all sorts of things. But the clients weren't so keen on that part, and we got a wish list from them. What do they want? Oh, well, we want more resolution. And So we gave them more resolution, and in the project it started off at 8K, which was, I've got to say, 8K resolution is very marginal as a 360 camera. So these are autonomous on-site 360 cameras, so they eliminate all blind spots, and they're super high resolution. They're some of the highest resolution 360 cameras in the world, so it's 25K resolution. So that enables you to really zoom in very deep into the image, and you can see exactly what's going on, down to individual bolts, individual tools that are being used. You can see if an eye wash station needs refilling, all sorts of information. It depends who is using it to what they're using it for, but these cameras facilitate informed decision making in real time. So they're turning out to be a valuable quality assurance tool, and instrumental in avoiding rework, as well as being as valuable on the HSE front. So after the pilot, the cameras are now rolling out across the HS2 network, and we're very excited by this. So how do we keep our lenses clean? We use something which we've dubbed clear lens technology, and the cameras are motorized. They go around, they take lots of pictures, but you will see that we have got a CNC machined aluminium door, which is completely unique. It's electromechanically controlled, and the door opens only when the exposure is being made, and it's closed the rest of the time. So the camera is very well protected. The lens is kept very, very clean indeed. So the cameras that have been on sites now for 6 months, sites that have involved sprayed concrete work, and they've braved the awful winter weather, and the cameras have not had to be cleaned once in 6 months. So they're still giving really crystal clear imagery. So conventional non-360 cameras typically have about 4 to 5K resolution, but one of the reasons we found our system to be such a hit is that they get away from the problem that you get with a fixed position camera. You get this through the keyhole effect, so you get to see almost a very, very tunnel vision part of a scene. So sometimes there can be incidents which occur, which are just off camera, which we had actually on one of the sites. It was missed by all of the fixed position cameras which were in position, but our camera caught the position, and it was then used to remediate that situation. So this is what you would see with a normal 4K camera, and this is the same view from one of our 360 cameras. There we go. You get to see everything. So what looked like an empty site, actually there were people in attendance. Now, when it comes to quality, it allows deep zoom, so you can see everything that is going on. Now, we have this nice image of this gentleman. He's at a nuclear power plant. This is using our cameras. But if you pull back, you'll see the whole picture. So that is a measure of just how far you can zoom in to see exactly what's going on. So you're not missing anything at all. Now we've also got something which is the compare feature. So this enables people to compare from the database of imagery what is happening between images. They can be captured up to every 5 minutes, and you can see, you can go back any point in time and you can compare and contrast. Now, this has been highly effective for monitoring, facilitating easy documentation of compliance, and also a powerful tool for risk mitigation as well. And it's helped assure compliance at point of work. Now, furthermore to that, the content is machine readable. So we've been conducting some advanced tests now with AI recognition of objects, PPE, equipment. So, you know, we have the ability to count what is happening on a site and provide a record of that. So what's the need? It's comprehensive documentation, communication and collaboration, because you're not missing anything at all. For safety audits, which obviously what this call is all about, it's really important because you can see, you can catch mistakes before they turn into something which is something, you know, really quite serious. And what's the need? Well, we see project documentation for legal purposes, training and education, and time-lapse construction videos, as well as an automated content making machine. Really, it's perfect. Also for sharing with multiple stakeholders. So benefits, you know, conventional cameras have got 4K, 4 to 5K resolution. That's between 4,000 and 5,000 pixels. You know, these cameras got 25K resolution. That's 25,000 pixels. And one on-site camera is the equivalent to 4 of the regular cameras which are used on construction sites. Great for QA. The field of view is an absolute game changer. And improved forensic analysis of everything from incidents to also QSs who are monitoring what equipment is used, and that helps with the streamlined client reports. And yeah, overall, it's a very valuable tool. Commercial value as well. So as well as the HSE, very important. It's great in avoiding reworks. Very importantly, it noted when something unfortunate had occurred, and we managed to it was managed to be reported, and that saved many tens of thousands of pounds. And also it keeps the amount of people on site at any time to a minimum, so it saves unnecessary feet on the ground. Okay, and testimonies, we have it all here from, you know, it's attracted the attention of the CEO of HS2 and the board. It's very popular. 2 of the cameras that we've been monitoring carefully, they've been up now for 6 months, and they've been viewed 14,000 times by 30 users. So they're an absolute game changer. So in conclusion, if you want to take your view of the sites and monitoring health and safety and taking it to new heights, you know, maybe it's now time to take the blinkers off and consider much more modern ways of recording site activities. Yeah, thank you very much for that, and I'm open to any questions there.
Okay, thank you, Drew. So there's in the chat, there's a note from Katie, thinking of POP, principles of prevention and reducing worker exposure, e.g. a TSCO, traffic safety and control officer, completing drive-through checks of temporary traffic management. Can it be linked to assets to notify of defects or issues?
Yeah, we can link the content which comes off to anything from load sensors to any other points. We can link them out there so people can enter the portal and they can then click on a hotspot which can take them to information from sensors or other portals, so it can be linked to that. So you've got this lovely circularity of the whole thing.
So would it, I suppose, as a question, would it pick up an incursion within traffic management? Could that be automated, or would you have to view all the? Would you have a sort of manual, or would it be automated? I suppose
there are degrees of automation which are possible. If there is a traffic incursion, that could be linked to. We have a partner company who this is something we're looking exactly at the moment, linked to AI sensors. So you can see the correlation between the AI sensors which are scanning at the time and the imagery, and that you can line up between the two. But that is possible, yeah.
Okay, I think Richard's got his hand up.
Yeah, they're already using technology to do that on the M25 Junction 10 Alpha BTO, which has led to improved design.
Excellent.
Okay, Pam's got his hand up.
Would you mind just running through the data protection part of running the cameras and getting too much information or public information, and how the information is actually managed, please?
So the cameras are fully GDPR compliant. We have face blurring. We have, if there are public buildings and they are in the shot, or public areas, they can be blurred, completely automated, and access to the cameras is super secure. We've got 3 layers of security, which includes 2FA, and yeah, it's everything's fully GDPR compliant, and we've had to really jump through hoops, obviously, with HS2 to ensure that yeah, they do comply.
Okay, thank you.
And could I just make one last comment? Is that when I saw this presented at HS2, I was thinking about the design community and the principal designer community, where basically we don't see what's actually happening on site on many projects. So this allows designers to be aware of the activities that are happening during construction. Is my main sort of reason for pulling this into the principal designer working group. Is we could use this as pre-start meetings, sort of design awareness, progress awareness, technical reviews of constructability, buildability, and issues. So that I sort of, fair enough, Drew started off by saying that he's not using the markup facility and there's not been a demand for that. But I see that there's a lot of benefit for actually getting the data from site and actually marking up before doing the work and looking at it in terms of integrated design or design coordination. So that's just a bit of a reflection from me.
Yeah, absolutely, Pav, and we're very open to doing that, but we have to be reactive to the people who are using the system, and for whatever reason they chose not to go down that route. If there's a need for it to be marked up, yeah, we can deploy that. That would be a further development, but yeah, it's yeah, we can do that.
I suppose, could I ask as a follow-up? You're talking about very high resolution imagery, obviously.
Yes.
Is there any issues sort of using that on the web? So if you were sort of linking that back to the office, so web browser capacity, etc., is that a problem?
Absolutely not at all. It's engineered to work on very small slices. So when you do the deep zooms, it's only loading the content it needs. It works fine on mobile phones, tablets, out and about. Yeah, it works. It works beautifully. It's engineered to be very lightweight, actually. So it manages resource very well indeed.
Okay, thank you. I mean, certainly as Paul says, I mean, in terms of getting that feedback to the designers in the office, I think that's yeah, that would be very advantageous. It is an area that getting particularly young graduates, etc., experience of construction, constructability, buildability, etc., is a key area that this group are obviously very interested in. But so unless there's any more comments, so Tony's Drew, do you have any examples of night vision using the cameras?
Can you get that up, Ottawa? They're fantastic in low light. They're unrivaled. They're absolutely stunning. They run 24/7 on HS2 sites, and they are, yeah. I mean, even in the it wasn't the most exciting photograph, which is why I didn't put it up. But if you want to contact me, or have we got it? Oh, here we go. Yeah, okay, and we'll just share that. Bear with me a second. Let's turn the camera off. Okay, accept downloads. A second. Okay, but yeah, it's absolutely superb in low light. It's that's one of its really strong suits. Just while I'm waiting for this image to come in, I'd also like to make an offer to anyone else who's on this call. If anybody wants to try this system out, we're really happy to come along and do an entirely free demonstration, just to show what is possible. So let me just share my screen again now. But yeah, please do get in touch, and we're very happy to do that. Bear with me. There. Okay. There we have it. That is in a situation with no light or very little light. We're talking about very limited, very limited light, deep underground, and you can see we have this this really beautiful quality. Look at that. Boom. So yeah, it performs superbly in low light. And that's a dusty area there, but it allows for limitless pixel peeping, even in very dark scenarios. If that helps answer the question.
It's very impressive. I think Mitchell's got his hand up.
Hi, just got a couple of questions. Is it possible to link the camera with, say, digital versions of a contractor's visual standards? I've got a project where they've got set visual standards, and if they were using such a camera, could the camera software identify non-compliances, or is that just a visual thing that you need to check?
We are looking at the moment its ability to measure things like cracks at the moment. I think probably the most simple way of doing that is to link the imagery to a point where people can go to and just look between the two. When it actually comes to the direct comparison of designs, it hasn't been geared up for that yet, but it is possible. It all is down to client need. Simple as that.
Okay, because that leads on to my next question: is could the camera system ever be used for measurement, so that, say, something gets built and then gets hidden, but they needed to check it before it got hidden? Could they use the imagery to check that it'd been built correctly and sort of be used to confirm as-built drawings or some record drawings, that sort of thing?
We are very confident it can be, and we're working with the National Physical Laboratory at the moment. And yeah, we can measure in this. It is possible.
Brilliant. Thank you. Be good to see when that comes out.
Okay, I think Pat's got his hand up again.
Just one last one for me, which is, has anybody used this for prosecutions? So, you know, the earlier question about traffic safety officers and people driving onto our sites, are you able to extract date-stamped, time-stamped information that then can be provided to the police or other regulation people?
Yeah, absolutely. It can be. It can be extracted. Yes, it hasn't been used in any prosecutions yet, but it can be used to record anything that goes on in super fine detail. And yeah, everything is backed up in multiple places with timestamps, so we can prove when an image was photographed. You know, we can do that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Drew. That was very informative and generated some interesting questions there. So thank you, and obviously your offers out there to members of the group. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for letting me present, and I hope you find it interesting.
Okay. Yes, very interesting. Okay, thank you. Okay, bye now. Okay, so moving on to the next item, which was under the Supply Chain Safety Leadership Group Initiatives and Safety Hub updates. We've already had the update from John. So if I could ask Katie to present on the hub update. We are a little bit
it's all right. I've taken out the whole section on the raising the bar update, so it should be cut right down. So hopefully I shouldn't exceed 5 minutes. So.
Oh, right. Well, I was hoping you'd do a little bit more actually, but
oh, well, there you go.
you've got.
I've cut it short now. I didn't realise. Apologies. The safety moment was going to be part of that. So so I've taken those slides out to make it. I'll speak slower.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Right, whilst I'm setting up the slides. So for those who don't know me, if I just quickly flash up my camera. So hopefully the camera's working. Yep, there you go. I'm Katie Gray. I've privilege of being the new chair since Liz has moved on to pastures new. So yes, 2 months in, and we're on a second meeting that I've had the delight of chairing. So if I just share, I'll take the camera off. What we've just some of the topics that we went through. So we had a safety moment from Amy this month with regards to an update on the memo that was sent out to everyone with regards to the incident when they were removing post columns. So one of their supply chain members had a task to remove over 300 lighting columns, and they were using disc cutters, which perhaps most of us would agree that probably wouldn't be the best item of kit to remove such an extensive amount of columns with. And in doing so, they were making a horizontal cut, and the blade failed and lacerated one of the individual's legs quite badly. So there was quite a lot of conversation from group members on alternative products that people use. Predominantly, I think recip saws seem to be the way, but there are also a lot of people looking at other innovations with regards to the horticultural industry, where they use it obviously to take out trees, and if there was there's diamond blade alternatives that we can use to cut them off at the base, but obviously that requires an extensive amount of expense in looking at those options. But Amy haven't quite yet finished their investigation. It's nearing the ends, but it gave a lot of food for thought and a lot of discussion with the group with the specific regards to design and planning element of this project. So I can't see hands, so I'm going to try. Sorry, let me put it on just in case anyone puts hands. So we had a last meeting on the 2nd of May. We did have, and I haven't included it in the slides. If you want me to go through that, I do have the slides for the research project. I didn't know if everyone was aware of it, but what came out of the supply chain leadership group last month is that the occupational health group are proposing to do a musculoskeletal research project to look at the prevalence within our sector. As part of that study, they will be looking at what studies have been done in our industry and other wider industries. Initially, there's a concern there isn't much to do with our industries, but we have a lot of overlapping industries with obviously network rail and lights and utilities. And there is a plea for investment. So National Highways at the moment proposing to fund half of that, and then looking to the wider supply chain community for that. So we discussed what the project was about and whether there'd be any other companies that would like to support that. So shout if you want me to share those slides. Happy to do so.
Yes, please. I think we have time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I shall pop those up on the screen. Then actually, let's do it with the flow. So let me stop sharing that.
think while you do that, Katie's got a hand up.
Oh, go for it, Katie.
Hi, Katie. Another Katie.
Hiya. I know, it always gets confusing, doesn't it?
Okay. In one of the many meetings I was in this week, it's all a bit of a blur. I mentioned about in our quest to sort of extract those risks that are sort of higher risk or difficult to manage in our design risk management, how many other risks such as musculoskeletal or well-being risks, for example, are we normalizing, if that makes sense, the kind of they become an acceptable level of risk because we're focusing on service strikes and so on and so forth. They're getting the greater amount of attention. So I'm glad that kind of this has been kind of extracted and focused upon, because you know, suffering with a bad back myself, they're the things that make you miserable. And you know, the likelihood of you striking 11 kV cable are probably minimal compared to you putting your back out at work. So I'm interested to see what the outputs of this are.
Yeah, I think it is that thing about shouting about health, isn't it? Safety's the very forefront of everyone's mind, and often health gets overlooked, which I think a lot of us here probably represent that. So this is, so like I said, it's been proposed by the Occupational Health Group. So Steve Perkins has put this forward. There's only 3 slides, so I'm going to tap through this section just so it's all on screen. So obviously he's put the case together for why we need it. Obviously, I think we all understand the implications as an industry. So he's put a few statistics in around that, and then what the focus areas will be on. So obviously he's talking about risk 3 and the focus on maintaining the structure. So that may put more practices on individuals may suffer more musculoskeletal issues, because it's the bigger projects take that into account. Potentially some of the operational stuff where it's day-to-day maintenance doesn't always have such control measures to reduce or minimize. So he's looking at those, and he was looking for information as well as part to support this project about what those activities would look like as well. So he will be going out to us as wider providers if he can get this project on board. So there's various elements that they want to look at. Obviously, the first bit is engaging with us, and then the literature review. So what is out there that would cross with our industry and what is in our industry as well. And then it's going to be a specific focus on certain tasks, and then there'll be various standardized research surveys carried out to look at what the prevalence is within our industry. And then there's going to be tasks focused from the analysis from that in summary. my way of hobbling through it. I will share the slides at the end with Doug, and you can share them out to yourselves. So yes, it's going to be, I haven't got the exact details of the study yet. It's in its initial proposals, and Richard, please butt in if you've got something. But these are the sort of, again, where they would be looking to go. So they'll be looking for support from us and tying it in with our strategy as well. So it's going to be evidence-based research. So, and this is one of the first ones they want to look at, and then obviously depending on the success of this, they'll be rolling it out for other risks as well. Everyone's quiet. So I've stopped sharing and put the other slides back on. Trust my computer to go on slow, so you need it to go fast. Right, share. So we also had Andrew Cox was invited to the meeting, the last meeting he attended. So, and he was really looking for some feedback on the last community update that we had the week before last. So, and there was a bit of a discussion around the request for members to have Some of them were struggling with what was the expectation of the significant risk strategy, and there was a bit of a request: could there be a template formed? Obviously, the Chevron one's been shared with the wider community as an exemplar template, but perhaps the hub were considering maybe putting a few lists together of the key topics to include within the strategy, the expectation of that. So that's something we're looking to do. We also have Balfour Beatty were invited to present on the M25 weekend closure. It's a really extensive presentation, really good, looking at the case study and what they did in the design and the planning behind that closure and how they included all the stakeholders and the success of that closure, and how they didn't just pass it on to other counties or local authorities to deal with the problem, how they engage with them as well. And it was a national communications project. I will share those slides again with Doug. It's a lot to take in for me to present to you guys, but I will share those slides. It's a really good study. They've got another closure coming up shortly as well, so hopefully they'll get a good response from that. But there was a lot of planning and design that went into it to make it a success. Then we've already touched on the one before that. We had again an operations focus on raising the bar 42, so the working on hard shoulders and roadside verges, and some of the issues that specific operations were having with regards to maintaining those lateral safety zones. So again, it was that wider conversation and how we as the hub are engaging with that group to discuss some of our issues and some of the compliance, how that can be included in the TM working group to discuss those issues. So we're feeding back to them. We've discussed the Raising the Bar update. There was only the Raising the Bar 9, so Maureen presented on that, and that was the findings at the safety moment this morning. And then the next discussion was quite a wide discussion around the next meeting. There's big appetite. Okay, apologies, it's not around health, Katie, but around looking at the above and below ground services themed significant risk working group. So the proposal is that we're going to have a workshop at the next meeting. Key members are going to attend, and we're going to split out into various groups, whether that's above, below, or overhead, and include competencies as well, and see if we can develop a bit of a scope for that, what that would look like, and take it back to the significant, SLG, to see if we can set up a significant risk working group around that with some key members from the hub. Again, there was a lot of discussion on the new CPF metric. So Amy from Costain led on that, and she's been collecting feedback so we can put a group feedback into some of the concerns, but also make it in a positive way, so a positive light on how we can develop that guidance. And then finally, there was a discussion around communication. These are just the key ones that we're discussing, around how we can maintain better links between the various groups, including yourselves. So those that who were on the recent update, aware that we had a bit of a Slido. So we went through and that was focused really around communications, the aim was. So for us as a hub, we wanted to see how well known we were, because there was concern that we weren't, and it seems that we are quite well known as groups. That was positive. And then we wanted to see what the demographic was within the hub, and it's nice to see that we're getting a better balance between major projects and operations, but a bit slim from a response. But there may not have been many people on the group from the design community. Very slim on the design community, so it'd be good to sort of get a better equilibrium on that as well. Equally, we wanted to see how many of our members are involved in those risk groups. It's something that we haven't really focused on yet, and again, it's quite a good representation from major projects and the operations, and again, less so in the design community from this, but I'm sure you'll tell me otherwise momentarily. And then we wanted to see what from those groups people are involved actively in various campaigns or initiatives. So, and it was positive to see that a lot of people are actively involved, because the concern is that people attend meetings but aren't actively involved. And then we asked for what could we do to get better links. And there was a lot of communication around bad communication, I guess, and how perhaps there's a lot of overlap with our groups and there's not a real clear understanding as to who does what. So there's a bit of work there. I was going to take back to John, some of how we interact with some of our, as Richard was alluding to, the hub website and LinkedIn and things like that, and how we could do more work to make that more visual and accessible to everyone. So, and then finally, it was looking at what are the challenges for individuals and what can we do to overcome those. So you can probably see some of the key themes. I think we can all share there, and I'll share this afterwards. So for me, for the better links, well, not for me, from the group, there's a discussion around having named hub representatives. We know there are hub representatives on the significant risk groups, but named representatives, and including on your group, if that would, if we could, so that we could better tie in and share what we're all doing. Because I think it's sort of this mutual understanding, well, there's people on the group, so we must know. So if we could have those named people, it would tie it in a bit better. We do have the hub newsletter, and we struggle again to often get content. So again, it'd be cool, perhaps from yourselves as well, if we could have it on your agenda, so that there's some great stuff that's come out of this meeting today that would be wonderful in the newsletter to share with the wider community. So if I could draw on that, and if you could have it perhaps as an agenda item, it'd be great if we could pull on that as well and share it across the wider community. And then again, something that we have got a steering group within the hub, and we're trying to arrange a meeting with the Supply Chain Safety Leadership Group, the other working groups, and perhaps yourself as well. That would be great, just so that we could have those clarity over roles, so that some of the areas are getting blurred. And then we've discussed that, I think Richard alluded to earlier, that we're going to have a small communications working group to look at our website, social medias that we've got out there, and how we can better communicate with our key stakeholders. And then the final one was what we've discussed about the above and below ground services work group. So that's us in a nutshell. I'm happy to make it a more detailed one in future, Doug. I just kept it short and sweet. I did obviously have the raising the bar 9, which would have filled it out a bit more. Has anyone got any questions?
There are 1 or 2 comments in the chat.
Okay.
Just having a quick look down. I seem to have jumped way ahead. Nick has mentioned Carmageddon, Junction 9 to Junction 10. I guess that's M25 in the next few weeks. But,
yes, it's due soon.
There's one from Pav. Can you consider developing a restricted material list similar to HS2? Occupational health is part of the research project.
That's a good one to feed back. Yes, I can feed that back into the occupational health group, because that would be positive. Integrating the work of the utility. Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for having me. Definitely take those on board. And likewise, we would welcome members if you want to attend our next hub meeting, face-to-face one in Birmingham, to look at that specific topic. We would welcome. Look, I know that already we'll have a few of you on that, but we'll welcome others too. Share the invite.
Okay. Thank you. I don't think there's any more comments. Nobody's got their hands up. Does anybody have any final thoughts? Oh yes, there's a message.
Kind.
Just come in, Pav.
I'm going to cause trouble.
Rescue.
Yeah. I've got a second comment about NUR, which should be integrated into your utility piece of work, where Atkins is supporting that. But I know they're slightly behind, which is just the basics of utility mapping. But if you could bring them into that conversation. And the other bit is that the only reason why restricted materials and occupational health has become an issue for me is because of the HS2 client. They have actually specified and dictated that we want to have an occupational health plan, and I don't think there is a PCF requirement in place that occupational health plans are actually created. So if they're doing that research project and it doesn't realise into an actual PCF requirement or a raising the bar, i.e. an activity that's actually done on the delivery of major projects, it's just going to be left as a piece of research. So my only request would be is that it's got to lead into an actual deliverable on projects. For example, GG 104 turns itself into specific risk assessments or 5x5 risk assessment matrix or particular outputs for CDM, but we don't have anything for occupational health. It seems to be quite optional, and it takes time to integrate into a project unless you've got a contractual or a scope push. If that's all right.
No, I can definitely feed that back to the group. No, thanks, Pat. And I know, Mark, you were keen from the previous community meeting as well for this, so I don't know if you want to join our face-to-face in Birmingham. I can send the invite to you.
Yes, in invite. What I'll do is I'll bring along, because I'm not the technical expert, is the USMP and Puma. They are the technical experts, and they interweave with NUR. So NUR, when they do the mapping, you can't avoid something if you don't know where it is, and these people detect the thing and map it correctly so that you have a fighting chance, at least when it goes into NUR. They're the technology people for finding utilities.
Wonderful. No, I should definitely. That'd be brilliant. Okay, the invite's being sent to you shortly. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Yeah, thank you. Again, very informative. I was hoping to get Martin Partington in because I know he's struggling with meetings, but unfortunately, he was going to just jump in now, but unfortunately, I think he's declined again. He's got another meeting. So if I could move, I was going to put a break in now, but is everybody happy to continue?
I think in the interest, continue unless anybody objects.
Okay, so we're okay to go. Okay, so moving on to the next item, and this was an update from Robin James of the Temporary Works Forum. So hopefully Robin is on the call. Yeah, I can see you there. Thank you. I think you're just on mute, Robin. Possible?
I don't think so. Not on mute. Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, you coming through now.
So
yeah.
I just wasn't talking. Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm just going to do a verbal update, and I will put a note together, and that can go out with the minutes, which Doug is going to send out. I think he said, and really, I think I'm highlighted here as trends for TWF. It won't take very long, few minutes, just to kind of summarize what we've been up to. First of all, those of you who may not be familiar, what is the Temporary Works Forum? It's a body which has been in existence for nearly 15 years. It's a keen group of very dedicated people who are promoting the importance of temporary works, and that is manifesting itself in all kinds of ways, which I'll mention now. I've been in post as the Ops Director for TWF, new position, for 1 year now, 1 year today, actually. And so it's great to be able to speak to such a wide group of people in the National Highways Designer Group. I think I'll start by saying, and by the way, we have around, over 250 members, and it is a forum. It's not a trade body, it's a forum. And they all do tremendous work as volunteers, and many of them put an enormous amount of work into the forum. So just picking up on current trends, we have recently, if you are aware, I don't know, you might not be, issued a third online learning course, training course, and this is titled EMOS, the Effective Management of Scaffolding. It's had a soft launch. There's just some some sort of issues to be addressed before it kind of goes with the full-on launch, but it's certainly possible to do it. If you go to the TWF website, you can get in there and do it. It's free of charge, costs nothing, and there's a series of questions along the way and a test at the end, so you can get yourself certificated as having done it. So that's it's quite a long time. It probably takes 2 or 3 hours to complete in one go, but you can do it in little stages. The group has a number of working groups. We're up to the mid-40s now. The working group number 5 is preparing final review of the working platforms guidance, which was last issued in 2019. They've just published a first draft for publication later this year. That's now going through the review process. Secondly, another active group is the low carbon working group WG32, who are looking at excavation, reduction of carbon in excavation, and also there's another group within the low carbon group which is going to be preparing guidance on road haul, temporary highways, and addressing such issues which may be of interest, of course, the cost of implementing these low carbon measures, very, very significant cost of fuel, the cost of putting a diversion in place, for example, and be very interesting for the supply chain and for national highways. So keep an eye out for that. That will be coming out later this year. There will be a brief presentation at our next quarterly meeting in June on the excavations guidance. Thirdly, in terms of guidance, we've got WG42, that's the mesh fencing guidance, which has been developed over the last few months, is now in published draft form, and that probably will be the first one to be published. And that's something which is of considerable importance and interest. So we'll keep you posted on those documents as they come out. Worth also mentioning, although it's not Temporary Works Forum, this is the British Standard 5975, Temporary Works Procedures in the construction industry. Revision has been, the review has been ongoing now for getting on for a year, and the revised version is anticipated fairly soon. I don't know the exact date, but we are expecting that quite soon. TWF itself has been quite busy with funding of university research and scholarships, and coordinates its activities with several universities. And we've just gone out for applications for funding for 24-25, and we've had 2 submissions from the universities of Liverpool and University of Salford, and the deadline is next week, so we probably expect another 1 or 2 before the deadline. Then we'll review those and proceed from the next board meeting, which is in June. I've got these points listed in no particular order, but I think it's worth mentioning here that Construction Safety Week, today is the 9th of May, that is about to conclude, 10th of May, and also the No Falls Week, which starts on the 13th of May. So 2 industry events which I'm sure you're aware of, but haven't yet sort of cropped up in the meeting. Looking at more internal activities, we've had some internal voting for new TWF directors within the membership, and 3 new directors have been appointed in 2 ballots during the early part of this year, and they will be formally, or the most recent ones will be formally appointed with effect from the AGM in June. And I think 3 new directors will sort of herald an interesting change of direction, and hopefully a positive and outward looking approach to temporary works going forward. I would flag up now that we're going to have a significant event a year from now. In June 2025 would be the 50th anniversary of the Bragg report, and that will be marked, celebrated by an occasion at the Institution of Civil Engineers in June 2025, and details about that will be published in due course. going on, I would mention we've recently been supporting the ICE Institution of Civil Engineers Northwest region in their awards, which were last week in Manchester, Thursday evening, and I believe was a very successful event with 600 people and some very well-deserved awards issued, and we have offered some judging as part of that process. I think I'll just wrap up by saying other groups that in the course of the year I've had to kind of navigate my way around all the ins and outs of Temporary Works Forum, and I'm also active on the HSE Busy Builder working group with Martin Ostcliffe, HSE, looking at ways of supporting the domestic sector, also with GERI, which is the Get It Right initiative, and I'm on the BSA working group there, and I'm about to start participating in the work of the London Health and Safety Group, LHSG, which has its next meeting on Monday afternoon next week. Plus, of course, the usual cycle of TWF activities with 4 quarterly meetings a year, 3 of them normally in London, this mainly at the Institution of Civil Engineers, but we will be going to the Institution of Structural Engineers in September for the meeting, so that'd be great to spread the exposure, if you like. I think that probably covers everything, unless anyone's got any questions, and I will put a summary together that will just set all that out.
Thank you, Robin. There's a couple of comments in the chat. Nick Boyle said BS 5975 has specific explicit duties on designers, methodology more explicit than the CDM. And that got a couple of thumbs up on a love heart as well. But,
good, that's great. I can see the other one too. The
okay.
Publications are very important, and that's probably one aspect of what the new team will be looking at, is how we promote, market, and possibly review our website provision and maintain all of that documentation, some of which is quite arcane and but very important, and people need to know where they can find it. It's there, and how they can use it.
Okay. Can't see any more comments. Anybody? Any final hands up, or any final thoughts? If not, thank you very much, Robin, for the comprehensive update. For everything.
No, it's a pleasure. Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for your attendance. Okay, so we'll now move on to our task and finish groups slightly early. But first up is Mark Lamport with the Health and Safety File Digitalisation update. Shall I put the presentation up, or do you want to do it?
Yes, please, Doug, and I'll just put my camera on briefly, and then as soon as you get the presentation up, I'll turn that off. I probably might need a bit more than 5 minutes, Doug, but so it's good that we've got a little bit of time in hand, if that's okay.
That's
might run to
fine.
About 10.
Oh, yeah. So that's coming through any second now.
Yes, if you can just put that into presentation mode, please. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, good morning, everyone. Just a canter through where we've got to on the health and safety file digitalisation task and finish group. Next slide, please, Doug. I'm not going to go through these in detail, but just for completeness, I've put in the list of subtasks that we've been working on, and the main progress since the last PD working group is that I have produced a draft process map, which I'll be showing you in a minute. So that one is completed. So subtasks 1 to 5 on that page have all been completed now. Next slide, please, Doug. Likewise, subtask 6, and I'm just finalising the final report, just bringing everything together. But the main conclusions and recommendations I've already developed, and I'll be covering those at the end of this presentation. So I think I'm about 80% complete on that, and I just need to pull the final version together. Next slide, please. So this is a slide that I presented back in our last meeting when my colleague Sophie Willett from our GIS team gave a live presentation based on using a GIS platform. But this was my idea of what a digital health and safety file could look like, a combination of the GIS data with the schema data there that you can see in the right hand side, coupled with a health and safety file text front end, because it's not really practical to get all the information that you'd normally put in a health and safety file onto GIS. There's certain things, sort of fixed data about where the project is and the description and the CDM duty holders. Most people are really not going to need that information, but it is there as part of the record of the construction project. So there will still need to be some sort of a textual document to accompany the GIS-based data. So next slide, Doug, please. So I said I'd put together a process map, and this is really a combination of a process map and an information flow, really. And it sort of also shows that the circularity in that at the end of the process, the information all feeds back to the beginning for future projects. But what I've tried to show here is how information flows from the designer's risk management schedule developed during the design phases, with a mirrored on a GIS platform, how that then migrates through into the construction phase, and then the process to filter out the significant residual risks and hazards remaining at the end of construction. Populating a schema that I talked about at the last meeting, and transferring that to a GIS platform, taking into account obviously the requirements of CDM 2015 Appendix 4, and then plus the National Highway specific health and safety file requirements. I think it would also be useful to put quite a lot of the information that currently sits in the MRS about access and inspection, maintenance philosophy. Some of that could be transferred into GIS format as well, because I think it provides very useful health and safety related information to the end user. Then that gets handed over at the end of the project, at the end of the construction phase, into the operation and maintenance phase, for the maintainer to update, keep the information up to date. They could also populate it with historic health and safety file information, and obviously it needs to be updated as asset maintenance, renewals and improvement works take place. So it's a continual evolution. But as I say, that feeds then back into pre-construction information, which also includes information held on the National Highways databases. And this is one of the problems. The information is spread around quite a large number of databases, but health and safety doesn't really have a home on any of those databases, and hence the need for some sort of a GIS-based platform, I believe, to improve the communication of that information. So I appreciate that's quite a busy slide, but when I was putting it together, I realized it is quite a complicated process, and probably there's things that could be added to that, but I've tried to keep it as straightforward as possible. Next slide, please, Doug. So where are we at the moment? The key conclusions, well, the proof of concept of health and safety file digitalization has been demonstrated. We gave the GIS presentation back at the last meeting. So the software is there. It's really a progression on from what design organizations are already doing. The majority of large design organizations are already using GIS-based tools and platforms for storing and communicating their health and safety file information during the pre-construction and construction stages. So really this is just an extension into handover. But I can't stress highly enough that it's the buy-in from the end users that's going to be needed. I'll come on to that further on in the presentation as well. And as we've also commented before, this misalignment between the design community and the end user maintenance community seems to be one of the main challenges to be overcome. Next slide, please. So I put together some general recommendations for the health and safety file itself, because whether things progress to a GIS-based health and safety file or not, there's quite a number of things really that need to be sorted out. And certainly these have become very much driven home to be in the process of handing over the M4 smart motorway, which I've been involved in for quite a considerable time now. And continually come up against some of these sort of fundamental issues. First of all, there really needs to be a clear definition and understanding of what a health and safety file is and what it isn't. For some people, it means absolutely everything that gets handed over at the end of a project. To the principal designer and CDM community, it's far more specific than that. It is the legal requirement of CDM 2015, principally set out in Appendix 4. That's what the health and safety file is required to do, and there's an emphasis on not cluttering it up with lots of information, which, although it's important, may not be directly relevant to health and safety. And unfortunately, this perception is sort of perpetuated by the naming of National Highways Business Collaborator Volume 19, which talks about handover health and safety file, and then lists out in 12 sub-volumes basically all the asset handover data. So one of my recommendations is that should be renamed to handover asset data to better reflect what it actually is. Another thing I've certainly learned is that it's really important to make sure that the asset data is collated during construction in a data environment which maps directly across to NHBC. If that's not aligned, then you get all sorts of problems about where information should be uploaded to and where it can be found. So there needs to be additional clarity as to which sub-volume all the various different types of documents should be uploaded to. Basically, additional granularity to those volumes. There is actually a mapping structure which takes you down into the next level, the sub-volumes, but even those aren't currently specific enough. And there's some ambiguities, particularly around some of the geotechnical PCF products. Should they sit in volume 6 or should they sit in the PCF product volume 10? You can only have them in one place, but it needs to be clear where they should go. Next slide, please, Doug. Yeah, and something also that I brought out in previous presentations is this misalignment between the National Highways Health and Safety File template, which refers to 7 volumes, the Civils Maintenance Handover Document and Certificate, which refers to 10 volumes, and as on the previous slide, the current version of National Highways Business Collaborator has 12 volumes. So those need to be brought into alignment, because this just causes confusion and wasted time trying to work out where the information should go. Pretty fundamental. Okay, next slide, please, Doug. So in terms of the health and safety file digitalization piece, I've come up with a list of actions that I think is required to move it forward. format and content of the hazard and health and safety file information to be shown on the platform needs to be agreed and standardized, even down to hazard marker shapes to be shown on the GIS. Do we use an equilateral triangle? Do we use a red triangle? Do we use a black triangle with yellow fill? Should it have pictograms? Should it have a descriptor? And should it have a design risk management schedule hazard reference? There needs to be some standardization, because I did a quick trawl on Google last week, and I found that there's quite a number of different ways of denoting hazard markers. There needs to be obviously agreement on which geospatial platform is to be used to store and display the data, to make sure that there's some standardization. A standardized structure and content for the data schema. So this is effectively the list of fields that need to be populated to ensure that all projects collate and hand over the significant residual hazard and health and safety file information in a consistent way, so that it's in a form that can be readily fed into the GIS platform. The design risk management schedule and the GIS platform should talk to each other, but in the past we've come up against problems with interface and linkage issues between the two, which need to be ironed out. Need to also consider alignment with ADMM and also ISO 19650 Part 6. I put that as a question mark because I don't know the answer to that. And clearly, if we do go down the digitalization route for health and safety files, then the standards and PCF guidance will need to be revised to reflect it. And there obviously needs to be flexibility for projects which are already in progress. And there's going to needs to be some process and protocols for updating the information to make sure that that's properly controlled and undertaken by authorized, competent people to make sure that that's been done correctly and that it is actually being done. Next slide, please, Doug. So I also thought about the potential benefits. How do we sell this really? Well, first of all, I believe that it aligns with the National Highways digital objectives and aspirations. It would certainly seem to align with the golden thread for higher risk buildings. I realise that's not in our sector, but it's good to have alignment with other construction sectors. But particularly it facilitates access to key health and safety hazard and other information by those who need it. I think a common causation for accidents is communication gaps, information not being properly passed on to those who need it, sometimes because the information is buried in health and safety file documents and has never been properly extracted. So this certainly facilitates that access, and it provides a single platform for storage of health and safety information. As I mentioned earlier, there's currently no central location on the National Highways databases for this information to be stored. I believe that the adoption of the digital health and safety files would enhance National Highways' ability to demonstrate that their legal obligations have been robustly complied with. Again, regarding effective communication of health and safety information, both through health and safety files and also at pre-construction information stage, because I think hazards are not well communicated back through pre-construction information. So there's a gap there. So that's really covered in item 6. It would facilitate provision of key PCI for future design and construction projects. There's a big advantage in updating health and safety file information. Currently, document-based information is difficult to update. If you've got a 50-page document, and you only want to alter a couple of sections in it, it's a lot of work just to alter those, make those amendments, which means it tends not to happen. I think this initiative supports and feeds into National Highways' ultimate objective to have a digital twin of the SRN. It's obviously some distance away, but I think that's an important objective. And very importantly, it would support National Highways to deliver their 2040 safety objective. I think this is, it would be a key element in helping to achieve that ambitious objective. Next slide, and I think we're coming to the so next steps needs high-level National Highways commitments and support from both major projects and operations directorates to make it happen, and that's very much echoed by the discussion that Doug and I had with Thomas Coleman last week on this. And just reading from an email he sent me this morning, he says the business case needs to be driven from where the business needs derives, i.e. operations and maintenance, who hold accountability in ensuring handover data is correct and health and safety files are stored sufficiently. So, and he also believes optimistically, or maybe realistically, that the ops regions actually already have a lot of what's needed to provide an interim solution to host information within the National Highways GIS, the spatial portal. So he's very supportive. He's keen to find an appropriate sponsor to take this forward. I've said that we're obviously drawing this task and finish group to a close because I think we've gone as far as we reasonably can with it, and it now needs to be taken forward if National Highways has the appetite to do it, with support from these key directorates, with Thomas as head of geospatial supporting it to assist in the practicalities and the nuts and bolts. And I think, Doug, that is probably the last slide.
Yeah, yes. So there's a couple of questions or comments in the chat, which I'll quickly run through. So Paul Brown said, if we produce purely digital health and safety files, is there a potential issue around how these are shared with access by consultees as part of the PCF process?
I would have thought there should not be, but that all depends on where the data is hosted and how what the access provisions are to that. I mean, that's really where we need the guidance from from Thomas Coleman and his team as to how that would be enabled. I wouldn't have thought it should be insuperable.
I think not insuperable, Mark, but certainly one which needs consideration, because
I
at
agree.
the moment we know that there are certain pockets of the overall delivery team, should we say, across the board, little pockets of access or competence in relation to digital, and other pockets which are maybe not quite so digitally in mind. And I'm just thinking, when we go through PCF process at the moment, we produce a health and safety file or PCI, whatever, and it goes through various approvals, and then it goes off to a document control group who vet it and then issue it out to people, which can be a whole range of people in different organizations, in different parts of the supply chain. And I'm just thinking, well, that's a Word document, that seems to work. I'm just dreading what that looks like when it becomes a model that people have got to access, and how that actually works. It's one we've got to overcome.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not pretending there aren't challenges there, Paul,
it's one of those little practical bits. Just as I was listening to it, just sort of ran into my head. I thought, not sure about that. Something to think about.
Yeah, no, fair comment.
Okay, there's I think a similar comment from Dave Orenshaw. I think the significant benefit of digitalisation is that GIS system and its data can be accessed and updated by designers, contractors, OCD and the maintainers, so much better than the current system where data is lost the moment projects are handing it over. Rob Butcher, absolutely, it does drive development of an organisation's ability to access this type of data, therefore pushing the industry forward. Conversely, on a recent project, the 3D model was fully developed and then the team were tasked with producing actual drawings, not paper, because of the legacy requirements of outputs from DMRB overseeing organisation. And Paul's come back, been there too, Robert. And Robert's come back in, timestamp, Passler 90 part 2, takes off a standardization descriptors for hazard terminology, which even if partly adopted allows the designer to have free text as well as fixed categories and descriptions that can be filtered. And next, we need to make sure it does not become a digital version of the analog version.
Yeah, no, all very valid points, and I think this also aligns with what Steve Naylor was talking about when he was talking about management of project health and safety files under CDM regulations in his sandbox presentation. So I think it does all align with the digital thinking that HSE and their Discovering Safety program. And I see we've got Steve Williams on the call, which is brilliant to get someone from Network Rail. Steve, can I just ask you whether Network Rail are thinking along these similar lines, or whether you've got any thoughts on how this could be developed in the rail sector?
There's a lot going on in this space. One of the things that came out of the Carmont tragedy was that there was insufficient attention paid to health and safety files, and I'm not party to what our GIS teams are doing in terms of digitalizing health and safety files, but there has been a big push to get projects to actually provide health and safety files, which was it was that bad, and I know there is an intention to digitize, but I don't know about National Highways, but certainly in Network Rail, the platforms are so wide and varied for the various asset management systems that we've got in place that providing one way of doing it is proving very difficult. And indeed, many projects suffer from what's been put in the chat. They suffer from having a model that they've used throughout the project, but then having to convert everything to 2D drawings afterwards, which is probably as inefficient as it can possibly be. So there is things going on. I'm not cited, and I know that there's a lot of work to do. There might be some synergy here, and I've been typing away thinking I'm going to find out what's going on, and then maybe have an appropriate conversation to see if we can be doing things similarly.
Yeah, because your assets are long linear assets, similar to highways. So there's quite a lot of sort of synergy between the two. So no, that's really useful, Steve, to just know where your organisation is at, and thanks very much.
I can find out more details.
Yeah,
but
that'd be great.
At the moment. Cheers.
I think, Doug, I've probably got you back on, just about back on time. So obviously it took a bit longer, but yeah, there was quite a lot to get through. Hopefully people found that useful.
Thank you, Mark. And I see Pav's got his hand up just before you go.
So Mark, just related to the Network Rail comment, HS2 is adopting ISO 19650 Part 6, and they're using a product called Safety Base as a method of coordinating all of the information into a single resource. And then when HS2 actually issue the next set of projects, which are to their rail organizations, they're then going to be providing Safety Base as their coordinated health and safety file, risk management as their base for their information. So they're in working through Safety Base as being that product that they've selected as a coordinated approach. So just that's another sort of, I know it's not Network Rail, they are compliant to some Network Rail aspects, but they're adopting safety base as a possible solution.
Okay, thank you, Pav.
Katie's got a hand up.
Yeah, just really quickly, because I'm conscious of time. I was involved in this back in my RIP days as a health and safety manager many years ago in National Highways. So I know how long this conversation's been bubbling around, especially around how many volumes and so on and so forth. So I've just put something in the chat really quickly. Conscious that as PCF is under review, as people are considering AI and lots of different things and systems move on, I'm just conscious that this project might be an ever-moving target. So I was just asking a simple question as to whether there might be any quick wins or simple deliverables, whether we can break this down into some sort of key milestones just to help keep this moving along. Or is it, or am I oversimplifying? Does it have to be delivered as one large piece of work and everything's done simultaneously?
No, I think it can be broken down, Katie. I mean, I think there are some potentially some quick wins, but I suspect maybe not so. But I think that the conversion to GIS base for health and safety files is not dependent on those other things being brought into alignment. You know, it'd be really great to have that happen, because it would really streamline the production of handover asset data, of which the health and safety information is a small but important part. So I think it would just help in streamlining it. But no, it could be broken down into, you know, bite-sized chunks, really. I think.
But I think sometimes it helps with your own well-being as well, to actually make you feel like you're actually getting some. Because obviously, having sat on the other side of the fence, I think it can sometimes feel that you've maybe banging your head up against a brick wall if you've met with some potential blockers as well. So yeah,
no,
your own sanity, perhaps.
Yeah, thanks, Katie.
Cheers, Mark.
And from a public finance perspective as well, because there's a lot of rework going on, and it should be a relatively simple process, and there should be standard documents which are not contradictory, and that's the problem at the moment. Dave, you had your hand up.
Yeah, and then I got shy.
Don't be shy, David.
The most significant benefit of that thing that we could achieve is to have a GIS location where we can start putting stuff. That I think has got to be owned by the asset owner, so that's got to be National Highways.
Agree.
But once they create that, it's really easy to set up a simple GIS system. The National Highways have one for holding asbestos information on some of the regions. Then that at least starts collating that information and gets us a step towards having something that we can then use. As Katie says, you've got some information held, you start feeling a bit better about where to put stuff and where to look for stuff, and it gets you in the right direction.
Yeah, totally agree.
Totally agree. Yeah.
And yeah, it's, as we keep saying, and Mark said in the presentation, it's what the end user needs at the end of the day, isn't it? The end user is going to hold the data for 100 years, and we need to align with that, and we don't want to be chopping and changing to get into different formats. But okay,
but
thank you.
It could just exist as a repository for a whole load of hyperlinks that take you to where other data is held. It could be as simple as that.
Yeah,
exactly that, David. Exactly that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Thank you. That obviously generates a lot of comments, and if there's any we've missed there, I'm sure Mark will pick those up.
That's fine.
And address them as part with the minutes. I'm hoping Martin is on the call. So I know he was struggling.
I am. No, I got pulled into another meeting and then my Teams fell over, but I'm back.
Oh, okay.
And I'll talk very, very quickly. And do you mind if I share my slides?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
So let's just get it up. So for those of you who don't know me, and there probably are some, my name is Martin Sherlock. I work for National Highways in Major Projects Delivery Services. My day job is Knowledge Management Lead. So I'm responsible for major projects, knowledge management strategy and its implementation. There's lots of things, but to cut to the chase, we agreed in this forum to set up a knowledge management task and finish group a few months back. And I just want to give you a very brief update and nudge those as yet unnamed and unshamed members of the task and finish group who haven't told me their preferences from the long list of priorities we shared, to please get their acting gear and send something back to say these are the 3 or 4 priorities. So if I can get this to work. There we go. So we've made some good progress. It's kind of a considered approach because we want to get it right. We have a terms of reference. It's quite a considered one. I guess my question really maybe to you, Doug, is where do we want to sit this so everyone can access it? And there's 4 broad objectives there. Identify and take action on common goals to capture, share, communicate and apply learning from experience. Align our work with the PDWG terms of reference and the MP knowledge strategy. I think that's fairly straightforward, but agree some initial objectives, and we have a very long list of things that people came up with. And to be mindful that here, as much as anywhere else, that learning from failure, things that go wrong, can be both commercially and reputationally sensitive. And people will often find it difficult for those and other reasons to share learning from things that have failed in some way. So we want to try and understand where we can help people overcome those barriers, because there's some brilliant learning to be gained from those areas. Practical, we have a 6-week meeting cycle with a simple agenda. We currently have 11 members, and once we've agreed on the priorities, we'll have an action tracker so that we can kind of be clear about what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, when we're going to have an outcome, and what we expect the benefits to be. And we can share that with you guys so we can get your feedback and input too. This is slightly smaller, but this is a list of all of those priorities that people who have voted so far have said should be included. Those that are in red have had at least 2 votes to say we should prioritise them. You can see some of them are much simpler than others. So listing and signposting to resources online we could promote, doing a bit of what have you got, what have I got, how can we kind of share, collaborate, signpost. That kind of stuff is fairly simple. It just takes a bit of time. Some of these other things here are a bit more challenging. So promote better trend analysis from heart to understand where to focus efforts in the various issues above. This is just the shortlist. We do have a couple of people from the Health and Safety and Wellbeing Programme coming to our next Task and Finish group meeting to talk in a bit more detail about heart, so we can understand better what we can get from the system and how we can use it, and what plans they have too, so we don't duplicate. So that's the Task and Finish group. And then, because I'm shameless, I just want to promote something else. We have run a number of online knowledge sharing events over the past couple of years, a mixture of kind of panel discussions, case study presentations, interactive bits. We have another one of these events happening later this month. So the afternoon of the 22nd and the morning of the 23rd. I'll stick the link in the chat. If you or any of your colleagues are interested, follow the link to a Microsoft form to sign up. You'll get an invite to the whole thing. You can choose which sessions you want to come to. That sounds really interesting, and I can make it, so I will come. If there are things that you can't make but you're interested in, then everything gets recorded, and the recordings are online normally within 24 hours. So you'll be able to catch up on things that you missed. A mixture of content, but it includes some knowledge sharing around investigating critical incidents on the 22nd, coordinated by Julia Evans, amongst others, and some practical stuff on the 23rd. So if you're interested or curious, sign up and then make a decision about what you want to attend and kind of participate in. Does anyone have any questions? And I'll send you the updated slides, Doug, so you can circulate.
Okay, thank you, Martin. I'm not sure we've got any questions.
Good.
Okay, I think you're in the clear there, Martin. Okay, thank you. Is Mr. Partington on the call?
Yes.
Okay, I've got the slides. Shall I just put them up and share them?
Yep.
Okay, should be coming up any second now.
Okay, so we've had 3 to 4 meetings, I think, since the last one. We've got 4 shares published now, and they're on the Safety Hub website. They're shown in the slide pack that is with this presentation. So they'll be sent out when Doug sends his information out. I assume that some of this will feed into that knowledge sharing task and finish group that's just been set up eventually. 3 are in draft, looking at confined spaces, NERTS cables, still rumbles on, and some driver behaviours on site. Then there's other ones that we're looking into, which are the design for maintenance shares that were done in the presentation last year or earlier, last year now. Looking at access and egress, technology assets, lighting columns and width of roads and things, and the alternative designs to verges to try and eliminate some of the health risks. So there's still a lot more work to be done with this safety share group. We are making progress, continuously progress. Would be useful to have a few others on board if we can. So if anyone's interested, we are always welcome to new input. And the next meeting's on the 29th of May. It's every Tuesday, usually every Tuesday, but this next month it's on Wednesday. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Martin. And as you say, there's 4 or 5, well, the 4 recent safety shares, and I think we've got another 4 or 5 in development away at the moment. But okay, so thank you. Just conscious of time, although we're not too bad at the moment. We're going to have a quick update on the suicide prevention design tool. Unfortunately, Nicola Tweedy has had a sort of family issue come up and had to drop out. My understanding of the situation at the moment is that the design tool has been put together. It's being trialed at the moment. I think the plan last time we spoke was to get it incorporated within the PCF process towards the end of this year. I'm assuming that's on target. And I guess Nicola will be providing an update, hopefully at the next PD working group, as to when it's going to be formally launched and incorporated. I know the obviously it requires some of the standards to be updated, etc. So all that piece of work has been completed. So, but say Nicola can give us more detail next time. And then I'll stop. Just bear me a second. I'll just share the quick update on the design risk management. Bear with me a second. Okay, so yeah, just a quick update from the the design risk management standardization task and finish group. So we have met in the period. There's quite a bit of crossover with the discussions that have already had. We're obviously working very closely with the SCSLG Healthier and Safer by Design Task and Finish Group and the work that John Pilkington is doing as chair of that group. So outputs from that feed into the design risk process and design risk standardization. So I think it's been agreed, and I think we mentioned this last time, that we as a group will focus on the update of RTB 26, currently safety by design, to make it health and safety by design, but focused on the design risk management process. So looking at driving greater consistency in terms of design risk terminology, getting improved alignment between the requirements of OD and major projects, but with that end user aspiration in mind. And obviously what we're looking to do is, if GIS is the way forward in terms of design risk management, making sure that what we're developing is, or what we're specifying within the updated RTB is focusing on that sort of GIS ask and linking to BIM and HSE's BIM for health and safety. It will obviously have to work around some standardization, hopefully, of a risk matrix, so the 5x5 risk matrix, which will be in there as good guidance, because obviously at the end of the day we need to align the risks that we're handing back to a standardized risk process, risk rating that OD are happy with, and we don't want to be chopping and changing as we hand over from designer to contractor and back to maintainer. So we want to try and drive that standardization. We want to build on the work that the A66 project are doing, and with Dave Ollerenshaw. We also want to align, as John said earlier, with the significant risk outputs and profiling. We want to promote training, and we also want to get that information over in terms of rag lists, and also link to the improving the safety by design plan template, which is in the current RTB 26 and was specified as part of PCF, but also align with the 3D process where we can, and also that bigger picture in terms of developing case studies and safety shares, which will come out of the Healthy and Safe by Design group. So that's a quick whistle-stop update on where that group is. So we now need to focus on getting some outputs and deliverables from that list. But obviously there are one or two things that we just need to get aligned coming out of other task and finish groups. So unless there's any questions on that, I'll just stop sharing. I'll try and stop some. So I don't think there's any questions on that. So I think we're almost bang on time for AOB. So does anybody have any other business?
Date of the next meeting, the 36th meeting is?
It's the 18th of July. It's at the Atkins Realis offices in Birmingham. It will be face-to-face, although we will have a Teams link available. Obviously, places are limited. The invite has gone out some time ago, so I do have a list of names, and I'll just be confirming those who wish to attend on the day, so that for security reasons and obviously numbers, I think we're limited to about 22 or 23, I think 24 on the day. So I will hopefully confirm with everybody. And that was on a first come first serve basis, in that I've sort of listed out everybody who responded early. Obviously we will need obviously some space for presenters within that, but other than that, the updates should be coming through shortly, and we'll get the minutes and chat room comments from the meeting out, and anything that comes from the presenters that we've talked about in terms of providing additional information.
So in that case, thank you very much, Doug, and everybody for joining the meeting and contributing.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your presentations.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good session. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.